14-year career, making him the second longest tenured captain in the club history behind Ray Bourque. Chara won the Stanley Cup with the Bruins in 2011, the organization's first since 1972. He might just be able to reach up and hang this jersey up in the rafters. Today is a notable day in GBH history. WGBH first radio transmitter was a temporary setup in the basement of a weather observatory on top of Great Blue Hill in Milton back in 1951. It was a borrowed FM transmitter from Edward Howard Armstrong, the inventor of FM radio. GBH had its first broadcast on October 6, 1951. It was a live concert by the Boston Symphony Orchestra. But just before that concert, GBH founder Ralph Lowell made this announcement live on the air.
WGBH, we hope, will be a station which you will invite into your home as a welcome guest. We plan to be on the air every day from 3 o'clock until 10, a carrier of the cultural heritage of the world in which our own New England shares so abundantly.
Happy anniversary to us. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Capital One, offering their premium travel card, Venture X. What's in your wallet? Terms apply. Details at CapitalOne.com. And listeners like you who donate to this NPR station.
Marjorie Egan, you're listening to BPR and GBH and NEPM, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Unless things fall apart again, we hope they won't. We're going to be back at the Boston Public Library tomorrow. Our technical issues having been fixed. We'll be there tomorrow, Wednesday, and Friday. Hello, Jim.
Let me just say, it's hard for me to do the show after the last 30 seconds. We had a terror ordeal in the studio. Right before we went on air, Marjorie's headphones were wrapped around another chair.
They are.
And I moved the chair for reasons that are not important, and I almost decapitated Marjorie. So it was a very, very stressful couple of minutes.
You would have had a headless co-host.
Wow. What was that headline in the Herald? Headless body found in topless bar. One of the great headlines.
No, that was the New York Post,
actually. You're right. In any case, today's education system has a ton of problems. But to avoid getting into our typical teachers' unions versus whatever it is that Marjorie believes in, Marjorie and I are going to open the lines on a school-adjacent topic that has little to do with educational content and everything to do with life, with parenting, the schedules. For working parents, it becomes almost unmanageable. Endless summer breaks cause educational backsliding in English, math, foreign languages, mental sanity. And the day-to-day of the school is wholly incompatible for a family with two working parents, the norm for families in the ever more expensive state of Massachusetts. Early release days, normal release times. Whether you're a nurse, a city bus driver, a biotech exec, our former colleague Karen Miller wrote a great piece in the Boston Globe this weekend. It's hard to imagine any working parents able to handle regular 3 p.m. dismissals, frequent half days for teacher training, and entire full days off that don't line up with federal holidays. And then, of course, there is summer. So the lines are open at 877-301-8970. School schedules and you. How do you manage to make it all work if you do? What are the costs, financial and otherwise? And probably most importantly, if you were in charge, what would you change that would make your kid smarter and make your life better? 877-301-8970. What are you laughing about?
Well, I love the way Kara starts her piece, that she was at a mermaid-themed birthday party for one of her son's pre-K classmates when she realized, much to her horror, he was about to start kindergarten, that there was going to be an early release every single Wednesday. That would mean somebody was going to have to get to school and pick up her kid or kids at noontime or whatever it was.
Or pay for some hugely expensive after-school deal.
And the bottom line of this piece is that the schools, the public schools, and probably a lot of private schools, I don't know much about private schools, but public schools are hopelessly out of touch with working families' lives. We spoke about this like 15, 20 years ago with David Driscoll, who used to be the commissioner of education in the whole Commonwealth. And he said, we run the schools like everybody's a farmer and they have to have the kids home helping them, with the harvest.
He said it was like
summertime.
100 years ago. It's like the school hours that existed when we were an agriculture society.
Right. And then, they stopped sending kids home for lunch in elementary school because so many mothers went to work. Now, the vast majority of women with kids under 5 are working because it's so expensive to live around here. So we always get these calls and say, schools are not supposed to be babysitters. Well, they may not be supposed to be babysitters, but they do need to accommodate. It's too expensive now to try to do what you need to do to get your kid in school, then pay for after school if you're working, most everybody is, then pay for all those camps in the summertime, which are really expensive, and then accommodate your kids all during Christmas vacation, February vacation, April vacation, and the additional 10 weeks off in the summertime.
A couple of really interesting things in Chara's piece, and I think this one was from her interview with Paul Revel, who obviously is a regular on the show, former Secretary of Education now at Harvard. Rich parents don't want shorter summers because their kids don't lose much because they pay to get them extra, and they want to be able to take long trips.
Yeah, they're going to India or something for the summer.
Are the ones who suffer the most from that. And the flip side is, the whole early release thing, you and I have been taught, one of the few things we both agree upon in schools is there should be full-day school. The problem is, one, how do you pay for it? And two, a lot of kids who are lower-income kids who ironically need that extra time the most work in the afternoon, and their families are dependent upon the extra income. So there's a huge problem here, but the biggest problem is that the people in charge of schools are paralyzed for the most part, and virtually nobody is willing to take risks that may cause them to get a fewer votes come the election season. So the number is 877-301-8970. Tell us about your school schedule experiences, how you accommodate them, how it's affected your work life, your personal life, your mental health, and what is the one change you would make that you think would pass the laugh test, which would make things better for everybody. She also mentions in this piece, that being Chara, who used to work with us here, is that, no surprise, most Western nations have a school year that's at least 4 weeks longer than we have in the United States. And the results are much better.
Well, I think we talked last week about how Massachusetts is now lagging behind Louisiana and Mississippi in reading, which is pretty bad. And that story pointed out that the reason when politicians say, oh, the Massachusetts schools lead the nation, it has to do with the wealth and the brains of a lot of the parents here in Massachusetts, so they're able to get extracurricular stuff for their kids. It's not about the schools; it's about the wealth of the parents. So, and the other thing is too that I feel so bad for parents in Boston because they don't have neighborhood schools. So you could live in Hyde Park and have your kid going to school in Brighton, which is like a 45-minute ride on the bus or something in traffic. And at least if you have neighborhood schools, you can kind of get together a group of parents that can help you out. If you don't have neighborhood schools, obviously you can't do that.
Do you know whose fault that is not, Marjorie? Let me ask the question again. The lack of neighborhood schools, whose fault is that not?
Is it not?
The teachers union is not responsible for that.
No, that's not. Well, the teachers union is not in Boston, Jim. The MTA is not in Boston.
Teachers union actually is huge in Boston. Boston Teachers Union.
Isn't that the Boston American Federation of Teachers?
Yeah, it's a very powerful union in Boston.
It's a different one than the MTA.
It is different, but still a powerful union.
I hear a lot less from them than I do from the MTA.
877
The MTA is the one that gave Jim the award.
301 8970. I'm sure the American Mass Federation of Teachers, had they thought about it, would have given me an award too. They just probably never get around to it. 877-301-8970. Let's hear about you, school schedules, and all that sort of thing. Lauren in Winchester, you are first. Welcome to the show. Hi.
Hi, Jim. Hi, Marjorie. Thank you so much for taking my call.
Thank you.
Listener.
Thanks.
I just wanted to share that I think one of my biggest mental stresses is that actually the scheduling of after school. You have to do this like months and months and months in advance and prepare everything. If the schools could only provide us with an after-school program that I would, in theory, pay for, but without having me to have to go through hoops and try to find things, and if you miss a deadline, then you're strapped and all that kind of stuff. And I'm from an affluent community, and I can only imagine how much more difficult it is for other moms and families out there. But I think having a school support of a dedicated after-school program that you don't have to go through hoops to schedule for, but that you can if you have to pay for it, fine. I get it. We're strapped. But it would be really nice to have that be just an option right off the bat.
Absolutely. And it seems to me, I don't know, we'll ask Paul about this next time he's here. How difficult is that to do what Lauren's talking about?
It doesn't seem very difficult to me.
Right.
But again, we're averse to doing anything that's very, very dramatic. Here's Fred from Rentham. I grew up in Asia. Our school year had only a few major vacation weeks, namely the holiday season and Lent. Oh, you couldn't do that here because that would be a religious thing. But anyway, then, of course, you have the summer off. Now that I have kids who go to school here in Massachusetts, we find they have way too many vacations, many too many professional days, holidays. No wonder American kids are falling behind. They get way too much quote-unquote downtime. Don't even mention that once you get into the workforce, you aren't eligible for any decent time off. And that's one of the problems people point out is that so many parents have 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks vacation a year where their kids have 14 weeks vacation. So that's a lot of time that you have to pay or find some kind of group solution to your kids not being in school, obviously if they're little kids. 877-301-8970 is the number to call. First to schedule. My middle school and high schooler would get more out of an extra hour of sleep in the morning compared to the elementary school. That's another thing, too. The elementary school should start earlier, and the middle schools and high schools should start later.
And if they started later, you know what happened? We could have daylight saving time year-round.
Right.
Yeah.
Then you get into people fighting about the after-school sports and the after-school jobs. Let's go to, is it Melora in Bellingham? Thank you for calling.
Hi. Yes.
Hi.
First time, second time. I mean, the second time.
Thank you. Thanks.
I have lived both sides of this issue. I am a sole custody single parent. My kids are older now. My youngest is 17. But during their elementary school years, it was very challenging.
Hey, Laura, we're going to have to put you, don't go away. We're going to put you on hold for a second because you keep cracking up your phone line. We really want to hear from you. So we'll take one other call and then we'll get back to you in a second. So please don't go away. 877. So is that a problem on our end? Is that what the message I'm getting? So here's the bad news, friends. We've gone a whole day without a problem, but not today. We have to reset the phone lines. So that means we have to hang up on all of you. And we would urge all of you who are online to call us right back.
Can I blame you?
And frankly, can I tell you something? If I were you, I wouldn't call us back.
No, don't say that.
No, I'm joking.
Don't say that.
I'm joking, of course.
We're
Call us
working
back
on it.
right away. We got to hang up on you, and we're really sorry.
You know what? I'm going to get to fix. I'm going to be able to unravel my headset from the chair during the break.
No, we're not taking a break. We're going to talk while people are calling back in. Yeah, we are.
Okay, so I can read some text then.
Please do.
Okay. I'm a latchkey kid. I survived. For my kids, I use the Hakamak YMCA before and after school program until middle school. They sign them up for sports. Parents take turns taking time off, and they do grow up. You know, the Y is great, and the Boys and Girls Clubs are great because they are less expensive for after school programs. Let's do it like the Netherlands, a 4-day work and school week for the days extended to the parents' workday length. I like that.
Do you know, by the way, speaking of that, we don't have a 4-day work week in this country, but Kara Miller also mentions in her piece in the Globe that there are a bunch of states, more than a handful, that have 4-day weeks. And I assume those 4-day weeks were a function of they didn't have the money to have a 5-day week. What does the parent do in that situation?
I don't know. Listen to this one. We have a 7-year-old child and both of us work. The only way we can manage that my husband works a remote job that he's completely miserable in.
Great, perfect.
But that way he's home for early dismissal, summer vacation, and all the weeks off. I have to work part-time, so I'm home to get them off the bus. We send him to scouts, taekwondo twice a week, piano lessons and swim lessons, which consume much of our budget, and evening weekends. We're completely emotionally, mentally, and physically
that's what it is.
Exhausted all the time. Oh my goodness, I find that so relatable. I mean, you must remember when your kids were little.
You are. By the way, I don't mean this critically. Marjorie says it herself. You were fairly disorganized. How did you schedule all the stuff you had to schedule for your kids after school stuff when your kids were young? How'd you do that?
Well, I took the easy way out and paid for after school, which went till 6 o'clock every day.
At the school?
At the school.
Oh, okay.
And then my children became very friendly with the custodian. They still talk about him now because...
They moved into his house?
No, because I was late.
Oh.
A lot of the times picking up my children.
That is shocking.
They paid you $1 a minute when you were late for every minute.
They charge you $1 a minute?
So sometimes I'd be paying $20.
Only 20?
But
Were you the
you know,
last parent most days?
a lot of times I was last.
Well, yeah.
last
By the
parent.
way, you had a job that was stressful.
Well, you
with
know, there's a lot of,
deadline.
you find this a lot in wealthy communities, call them MBAs turned PTAs,
Mm-hmm.
where the mothers are wealthy themselves. They got their business administration degrees, and they have kids later in life, late 30s, early 40s, and they quit their jobs to manage the schools. So you find that in some towns that they can afford to have a single parent working, but that's rare today, right?
Let's go to Deirdre in Concord. You're next on BPR. Hi. It's going well. I think.
Oh,
things
the
are good.
phones don't work.
Phones are not working. Okay.
Okay.
All right
Okay.
then. Okay.
Okay. So,
What would you say the odds are the library is going to be working tomorrow? I would say, I would not. If someone said, "Would you bet the house on it?" I would not bet the house on it.
Okay, as a former public school business manager, I can tell you that these are all wonderful ideas, but no one wants to pay for it, which is an excellent point. You know, you'd have to have extra money in the school systems to afford these kinds of things, because you'd have to have somebody there to pay for.
So you know what
after-school.
they should do? So a politician should have the courage to stand up in his or her their local community and say to people, maybe we have to override Prop 2.5 because we have to make sure that low and moderate income kids have a full day so that their parents who are most in need of the income can actually work a full day. The answer is Marjorie's not listening. Go ahead.
Here's
Phones
a good
don't
one.
work. Marjorie's
Here's a
not
good
listening.
one.
Whatever.
Here's a good one. First, the Boston Public Library doesn't work. Now the phones don't work. It's only 6 days into no government funding for GBH. By Friday, Jim will have to charge his Tesla all by himself.
That's funny. That's a really good one. It's not that funny. 877-301-8997.
Listen to this. This drives me crazy. We get these
Why
all
am I
the
giving
time.
out the phone number?
Schools are not your babysitter or your after-school scheduler. Parents need to better plan both their finances and their work-life balance.
Can I tell you, that is
drives
insane.
me crazy.
By the way, let me be clear. The notion is not that you essentially keep the school open, have a kid sit in the corner and watch a video. The notion is to let there be some enrichment stuff that's either affordable or free.
Where have we seen phenomenal results in inner cities with poor kids of color?
Where?
Well, we had the Nativity Prep kids. They started.
I see.
They go
Okay.
from 7 o'clock in the morning
What's
until
the school
7
you and
o'clock
I
at night.
visited when Jack Connors urged us to do it years ago at the old radio station? That was fabulous.
I know where it is. It's on Columbia Road,
It is
but I
on
can't
Columbia.
think of the name of
Nor
it.
can
It's a
I.
Catholic school. They spent a lot of money helping that place operate. But it's clear because people have to work now because everything is so expensive. And you know, when I get those things, I suspect that's coming from somebody in education. But you know, person in education, it's easy for you to say because you are not at the school for 14 weeks of the year. Or maybe you're there for a week or two before Labor Day, but you get to have Christmas vacation, February vacation, April vacation, and a big time summer vacation. Even if you have to work a second job in the summer, because I know many teachers don't get paid a lot of money, you have that flexibility. So it's a little bit understanding.
What do you do about the kid that I mentioned 20 minutes ago, or whatever? What do you do about the kid whose in summer income the family is dependent upon? And there are a lot of kids, obviously low-income kids. Most of them, a lot of them have to have jobs during the summer.
Well, that's
for their
different.
family.
We're mostly talking about younger children.
No, exactly. Well,
We're mostly talking about younger children.
why are we only talking about younger children?
Because older children can be a little bit more able to fend for themselves after school than younger kids
Well, how
can.
about young teens then, right in the middle, probably doing some little afternoon work kind of thing?
Well, it's been my experience. I don't want to tell any stories, but, 12, 13, and 14, we're talking crazy years, Jim. You know what I mean?
Can I ask you another
I think we need
question?
some supervision on the 12, 13, and 14-year-olds.
Can we get sued for misrepresentation? When we call something a call-in segment and nobody can call in, do we have any lawyers? I was going to say a lawyer can call in and tell us, but they can't call in.
I'm trying to read the text. Here's Rachel from Hudson. There's so much to juggle as a working parent. We currently have after-school programs in our town direct from the school and from the Boys and Girls Club. Both my children attend a Boys and Girls Club for $25 a year. Wow. And we only pay for their busing to and from. Neither of us were remote, and it can still be extremely difficult to manage school and their activities without after-school programs. And, of course, summers are a whole other issue because this summer, spending close to $7,000 on camps.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah, well, she puts that in her story. She talks about how camps are really expensive. You can get a cheaper camp, like a lot of towns have rec camps, like from 8 to 5, and those are the cheaper options. Or YMCA's do, and Boys and Girls Clubs do cheaper camps. This one, Kara Miller quotes in her story, is $300 a week. But if you want to go to one of these snazzy places, which I guess you can't go to unless you are a snazzy person, but $1,000 a week for Wild About Science at Beaver Country Day School.
Obviously, nobody's doing that, Marjorie.
Well, wealthy people are.
I don't think they're I don't think we have to worry about very wealthy people and what they're going to do with their kids. They're not in the crosshairs of this whole situation where do you leave work? Do you have to work at home? What do you do? They're not really the issue.
The best line in this whole story is the same thing, and I'm going to quote it from Kara Miller, who has young children, so she's in the thick of it right now. Parents I spoke with face a school schedule that's hopelessly out of touch with their lives, a schedule that imposes a burden so great they cannot be the caretakers or workers they want to be, and they can't be the parents they want to be. And that is so true. You're finding yourself giving 70% at the office and 70% at home, and you're walking around one big guilt machine.
In a moment of seriousness, by the way, when you used to, we were laughing before, you were always late and had to pay $1 a minute or whatever it was. I've told the story. I would call you late in the afternoon, and you'd be on deadline, and you were anxious about your story, anxious about the fact that you're going to be late, not just because of the money, but because you may be screwing somebody who has to stay late.
That's right.
Other than the custodian. Yep. I mean, is it?
Or I dragged my children back to the office where they made paperclip necklaces.
Oh, that's nice. That's actually very nice. Learn a trade. Is it not clear to you that schools should be the solution to the problem, and we just need leaders to make hard decisions about financing to make sure they can take care of our kids?
Yeah, there's too many vacations. You don't need February vacation right after Christmas vacation. Somehow, you don't need these long summer vacations, because look at the learning loss. Paul Revel talks about that all the time. I mean, our schools are in big trouble.
Who are the most powerful parents? Wealthy parents.
That's right.
Who wants long summer vacations? Wealthy parents.
Well,
that's
they're just going to have
the political
They're
dynamic.
just going to have to cut short the trip to the Netherlands and Iceland to see the Northern Lights or whatever they're doing.
I'm with you, by the way, but the problem is that's where the power resides in most school systems. They can go to the meetings.
Okay.
They're the ones that vote, et cetera, et cetera.
We're done. We apologize.
No, we're not done, actually.
We're not done?
No, we're not done.
We're not done.
No.
Okay, we're going to be right back.
We may be
we'll keep you in
finished, but we're not done.
We don't know whether the phones are working or not,
It's
but we're
okay.
hoping they are. You listen to BPR and GBH and NEPM, and we are streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. He's Jim Browdy. I'm Marjorie Egan. This is Boston Public Radio.
In India, herds of elephants are on the move. They're being pushed from their native habitats into places where they're newly encountering humans. This man says he saw a huge elephant running and stepping over everything. Elephants and humans learning to live together, next time on The World.
This afternoon at 3, here on GBH News 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And Bartlett Tree Experts, a scientific tree care company providing species-specific care for trees and shrubs for over 118 years. More at bartlett.com. And the Bach Center, presenting Herbie Hancock, the groundbreaking jazz musician and Grammy Award-winning icon. Herbie Hancock at the Bach Center Wang Theater, Wednesday, October 29th. Tickets at bachcenter.org.
Welcome back to BPR and GBH and NEPM. Marjorie Egan and Jim Browdy. We're streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Back at the library tomorrow, Wednesday, and Friday, normal schedule. If you're just tuning in, we're taking calls. We actually are taking calls. We're told the phones are fixed, thanks to our colleagues for the quick work they did there about overscheduled parents, too much release time at schools during the week, too long summer vacations, and how it makes it impossible for a typical parent to do the work they need to do and not have a breakdown over the scheduling, and also not enough schooling for the kid. What do you think? How would you fix it? 877. How have you fixed it? 877-301-8970.
Okay, I'll just continue reading the text here.
No, I think it's working. Let's take a call.
Oh, they're
just
working?
See if it's, we don't know that. We think they are. Richard in Framingham.
Hi, Richard.
Oh, my God.
Hi.
Thank you. Great. The phones are working.
This
Give
is
us a call.
exciting.
Thank you, everybody. Hi.
Make it good, Richard.
Yeah. Okay.
Richard?
Richard
Hello?
passed on.
No, he's there.
Can you hear us, Richard?
Can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes,
we
go
can.
ahead. Go ahead. We're so excited you called.
Yes, I think we need to lay it is personal responsibility. I think we need to lay it where it belongs, which is at the feet of these children who picked the wrong parents.
That's right.
They did a bad job of choosing parents, and they should have to pay for that decision, maybe for the rest of their life.
Let me tell you, the only honest
Richard,
caller we've had
you're a
in
hot ticket.
years.
I'm so glad you
Richard,
got through.
Thank you for your
Thank you
for your
very
call.
much. Well, we just had somebody who texted and said, the solution is unfortunately very simple. For my partner and me, we've come to the conclusion that we're just not able to ever have children. Both of us always wanted a family, but in this environment, it is literally impossible.
That's not funny. That's
Sad
hard.
reality.
That's just horrible.
Well, I think a lot of people think that. They can't afford it. I mean,
Speaking of can't afford and getting back to Richard's humorous, painful call, can I just give people a heads up? We're going to have on 11 o'clock tomorrow the guy who put together this film called Born Poor. It's on Frontline tomorrow night, 90% of which Marty and I both watched. It's one of the most powerful and painful stories about poverty in America that I've ever seen in my life, and I think you feel the same way.
Yeah, it's
so
great.
really tune
It's
in
great.
to hear him at 11. And then tune in and watch this thing tomorrow night. It really is
and
a
what they do is they
life-changing
start
kind of thing.
with the children when they're young, and then 14 years later they come back to see what happened.
They visit them as teens, and then they visit them again as adults. It's
and these little
unbelievable.
9-year-old kids talking about the poverty in their lives. It just, it was breaking my heart. It was tough. Okay, let's see how we're going to do with Greg from Amesbury. Hi, Greg.
Hi. A couple of things I want to get right off the bat. One is federally, there's about $85 billion of aid to K through 12, which is about half of what the increase in the Defense Department budget was. Just the increase in the Defense Department.
That's a very good point. Thank you, Greg. That's true. Yeah.
It's such a big problem that only the feds can solve it, really. And, during the pandemic when we had the ESSER funds, it was really just a breath of fresh air. We were able to do things with science of reading and things like that we would not have been able to do otherwise.
Well, the problem is, Greg, you're right, but Secretary A1 is not about to be fixing the problem. The federal government.
You know that Pete Hegseth, the Department of War head, is going to spend all that money on diets and grooming for the troops.
Yeah.
Right.
He's upset about fat people.
Another issue that comes up is parents are really averse to any kind of change. Looking to try to restructure our grade configuration, to try to take advantage of empty space. And 95% of the parents, literally, were against it. We talked about 400 different
When you say we,
parents
Greg,
over
can you
in
hold one second? I just have to say you're listening to BPR and GBH on and NEPM. When you say we, who is we? Are you a school committee member or some such thing?
Yeah, I'm on the school committee in Amesbury.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And so you have to try to deal with that situation too, where not changing means that we have structural deficits on an annual basis, but the resistance to changing grade configuration was amazing.
Wait a minute. What's grade configuration?
Well, we have, say, a middle school that is grades 6 through 8.
Oh.
And we have a high school that is 40% underutilized.
Oh.
So if we move the 8th grade up to the high school, we get better utilization there. We might be able to enhance programming because there's more going on.
But
yeah,
Greg,
so things like that.
What about what we're talking about though? Is fewer of these days off, a longer school year.
They got to come up with the money for it.
Right, they do have to come up with the money for it. But are parents averse to having more affordable after school or after school that's available to everybody? I mean, are they averse to that too?
Well, we hooked up with the I think the Merrimack Valley YMCA for after school programming. It is, because if the kids are enrolled, it gives the family a family membership in the Y. So it's an incredible win-win. So you're always looking for those opportunities, but we seem to be living in a period of diminishing resources. So it's a wonderful thing when it happens, but it is uncommon.
Well, Greg, that was you mentioned two, and Greg, thanks for an excellent call. He mentioned two really important things. One, resources and how the feds should step in and fund some of this stuff, which they won't. And the second thing is parent resistance. It's not just in smaller communities like Amesbury. How about when when everybody knows schools have to be closed in Boston because of the declining numbers, attendance, you propose to close a school, and it's like all hell breaks loose. And by the way, if I was a parent in one of the schools, I might be doing the same thing.
Well, we'll see if Wu has the political courage to do it anyway, because Marty Walsh backed down. And I'm not sure what Tom and Nino did, but I know Walsh backed down.
Well, it's the same sort of thing that Greg was talking about, though, in Amesbury, is the parents are resistant to change, whether it's small change or large kind of change. And that's another factor.
I know,
they have
but I can't imagine, given what we're reading about parents being so overwhelmed by the costs and the vacations, and that they would be averse to changing somewhat. I mean, you talk about rich parents being upset about changing summer vacation, but I mean, how many millionaire parents are there? Maybe there are a lot in Massachusetts.
Well, I don't think you have to be a millionaire. I think wealthier parents, obviously, by definition, have more options than other people do. So, in any case.
Okay. Well,
sorry about the phone lines, but now they are working, so that'll be the case for the rest of the show.
Yeah, after this quick break, we're going to stay close to a school theme here. We're going to talk to the president of the University of Massachusetts system, Marty Meehan. He joins us. We'll talk about the universities in the age of Trump attacks on universities. Should they fight? Should they give in? What's going on up at UMass? I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browder. You're listening to BPR and GBH and NAPM, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
I'm Jared Bowen. Today on The Culture Show, historian Jill Lepore. Her new book, We the People, asks whether the Constitution is a living document or if it's living in the past. We haven't had a meaningful amendment in 50-plus years, leaving the courts to decide the dynamics of democracy. We'll trace the long trail of failed amendments and what it means for power, rights, and the future of American self-government. That and more on The Culture Show today at 2 on 89.7 GBH.
Support for GBH comes from you.
And Revolutionary Valley. On April 19th, 1775 in Lexington and Concord, the first shots of the Revolution rang out. This is the heart of Revolutionary Valley. RevolutionaryValley.org. Funded in part by the Massachusetts Office of Travel and Tourism. And MIT Federal Credit Union. With a full range of financial services, their financial advisors are committed to helping members' money work for them. Memberships open to the public. More at mitfcu.org. Federally insured by NCUA.
Welcome back to BPR on GBH and NEPM. Jim Browdy, Marjorie Egan, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. We're back at the library tomorrow, Wednesday and Friday. Joined now in Studio 3 by the president of University of Massachusetts System, Marty Meehan. He served in the role since 2015 after serving 14 years in Congress as a representative of the 5th District of Massachusetts. He reminded us when he walked in the studio, since he was last on with the guy who was then head of the chief of the Bureau at the State House, Frank Phillips. We've never invited Frank back or Marty Meehan. So we're declaring a truce. We decided we'll go. It's good to see you, Marty.
Well, Frank and I declared a truce afterwards. We went across the street and had lunch. But we went at it pretty good.
Yes,
we thought you'd be inviting us back. But it's great to be here, Marjorie. Great to be here, Jim.
Great to see you, Marty.
Okay. So what's it like in the UMass system 8 months into this presidency? Are we 8? No, we're more than that
eight,
now.
9, whatever it is. 9
well,
months,
I
yeah.
mean, look, before the election, I had established task forces within the university to deal with things like A, immigration policy, B, research, and C, just to look at how we were going to deal with, with potential changes. That was before the election, and I can tell you all three task forces have been very busy. The biggest challenge is research. A lot of people have spent, faculty members have spent couple of decades, making UMass into a world-class research institution. We do $860 million worth of research in Massachusetts. It puts us just behind Harvard and MIT. And now it's in jeopardy. The medical school, which has become a world-class medical school with 2 Nobel laureates, they get about $200 million in NIH funding. They have clinicals and cuts and uncertainty have just made it really, really impossible. So it's a difficult time with regard to research. It's a difficult time in terms of, the number of students from outside of the United States.
Did it drop? Did that number drop this fall?
Undergraduates didn't, but international in master's programs and PhD
How
programs,
dramatically did they fall?
about 30%
Wow.
in the master's program.
Really?
Wow.
And part of it was because they were changing policies right around the same time that people were applying to come. So
I want to get back to the research
yeah.
issue in a second, but what do you say to, or what does one of the people working with you say, when an international student says, I really love UMass, it's a place I want to go, but frankly, can you assure me that I'm not going to be a personal risk if I come to your country and to your city? What do you say?
Well, we can't make any guarantees. I mean, we can't. Look, we work with our faculty. We hire faculty from all over the world, and getting them back into the country when the semester starts has become a challenge that we have to deal with. So we're careful not to make any assertions that we can't.
What do you do to protect that kid, though, as best you can? I mean, we've had the exact same discussion with the Attorney General of Massachusetts. She can let people know what their rights are so they're prepared, but that's the extent of it. What do you do to ensure that they're as safe as they can be, considering the current mess we're in?
For one thing, every congressional office has an immigration person working on these issues. We work closely with the congressional delegation to protect them. The other thing, Jim, is to sometimes resist the notion. A lot of folks on the Amherst campus wanted to have protests on campus about immigration policy and have students that maybe aren't documented get up and talk about their stories. We don't allow that because that puts those students at risk. I want all those students to graduate and to contribute.
What if they say, I want to be at that protest?
Well, if
and I
they
have a right
want to,
be?
as long as they get advice.
That they understand what the consequences could be.
If they understand what the
They
consequences...
won't be disciplined if they went to a protest.
No,
that
no.
you advise them not to.
No. Well,
Okay.
it depends on whether they want to put themselves at risk. I think it's my responsibility and all the chancellor's responsibility to protect students in every way, shape, or manner. And, what I didn't want to see was to see us putting them in a vulnerable situation.
We're talking to Marty Meehan, president of UMass.
Let's get back to the research for a second, because give people some examples of what kind of research that has been stopped. I mean, mostly it's stuff that we want to get.
Pediatric brain cancer, to give you one. The New York Times did a special section 2 weeks ago highlighting a UMass Chan medical school faculty member, and literally the funding for her research has been stopped with no... there's uncertainty in terms of whether or not the funding will come back in. Through the Attorney General's office, we went into court, and no administration has a right to stop appropriations that have already been appropriated, but it has been a slog in court. It's delays. Now with the shutdown of the federal government, we can't even talk to someone at the NIH and try to get a sense of what's the schedule on this. Merit-based research in America is at risk right now, which is the other thing. I don't pretend to know what the end game is, but I can tell you this. I was head Democrat on the Research and Development Subcommittee on Armed Services. We authorize $2 billion worth of research every year. Republicans and Democrats have always together supported research. The notion that this has become a partisan issue is crazy. It's not in the long-term interest of the United States or the short-term interest of the United States.
Are they even claiming it's got anything to do with anti-Semitism? Because I think most people have stopped believing that. Is that their excuse at UMass, or do they just give no excuse?
No, on this no. This is just a matter of we get grants and they have delayed them. We can't get to, they're releasing money late, but we've attracted faculty. Just take Chan. The Chan Medical School has attracted faculty from all over the world, and morale is bad. They don't know whether their research dollars are going to come. We have a biomedical science program, which we couldn't accept PhD students that we had planned to accept. So there's a lot of unrest and uncertainty.
You're losing faculty to other countries that treat professors a lot more respectfully than we do?
Yeah, we haven't. They're being recruited, and that's our biggest fear. We are going to lose faculty to other countries, and the United States is going to lose a competitive advantage. We've been number one in research.
We're talking to UMass President Marty Meehan. When you mentioned faculty having trouble getting back into the country, do you mean that they're stopped at the airport, or that they're just nervous, or what?
Sometimes it's nervous. Sometimes they're detained. We went through this with the first administration, Trump administration, and we're going through it now. Extra time on paperwork, delays at airports. They go to visit their families in another country, and they're having difficulty getting back in, and that's a challenge. And we also have recommended to all of our students who are outside the United States to get back early before the semester starts.
We were going to get to this later, but you served, as I said, a bunch of years, more than a decade in Congress. And my recollection of your service, you were pretty decent in terms of working with people across the aisle. Are you stunned by the sycophancy of virtually every single Republican in the Senate and the House to Donald Trump when a good example is this Obamacare thing over the shutdown. I saw on CNN last night, 77% of the people who are affected by the huge more than doubling of the premiums for the Affordable Care Act are in red states, the people that are voting not to extend the elevated premiums. Are you shocked by their behavior or no?
I am. No, I am. I mean, I look at what's happened in the country, and folks who have opposed the Trump administration, who are Republicans, have either lost or they've decided not to run. Mm-hmm. Mitt Romney decided he wasn't going to run. A lot of folks decide one way or the other. And many of these people have better conservative credentials than President Trump does. Yes, there's always been a balance of, the Congress, the Senate, and the House would always protect their interests vis-a-vis any administration, and you don't see that anymore. The other thing I would say to you, I could tell you I met most major Republicans in the Congress at Ted Kennedy's house. It's where I first met John McCain. I ended up working very closely with him. Orrin Hatch I met at Ted Kennedy's house. Bob Dole I met at Ted Kennedy's house. The notion that the parties aren't talking to one another. Ted Kennedy was a fierce liberal, but he worked with every Republican in the Senate.
Do you remember, I'll never forget in my whole life, I don't know if you were at any of the memorials for Ted Kennedy, but Dan Quayle is speaking. And Dan Quayle says, my whole campaign when I ran for the Senate was against Ted Kennedy, even though he was my opponent. And he says, when I know I'm going to get the story slightly wrong, but not totally wrong, for the first time, I'm armed for bear, I'm ready to whatever. And Kennedy knew the names of my children in advance, asked how each of them was doing, and he said, ideologically, we were in different places, but you couldn't not develop a relationship with a person who was so respectful of your life and your family.
I had lunch last week with Mike Pence, the former vice president, at the Quinn with a few people, and he talked about his very first meeting with Ted Kennedy.
Oh, really?
And it was that same kind of a thing. He was a pro in terms of he was a real legislator, and now you seem to get people, they run for the House or they run for the Senate, and they don't want to compromise. That's what the job is.
Well, it's all about keeping the job. It's all about re-election. So, Marty Meehan, as you know, 9 colleges, universities have been targeted by Trump, including MIT and Brown. And they're told, the good news is if you sign off on this deal, which limits international students, makes clear there are 2 genders, it's really respectful to your trans students, make sure that, I don't even know what this means, that you do nothing that in any way punishes conservative ideas. I mean, I don't know how you enter, and a whole bunch of other restrictive things. You do all those things. You sign that agreement, you're going to get extra money. You don't sign that agreement, we're going to screw you. I mean, that's essential. What would you say to the president of MIT or the president of Brown if they were to speak to you?
I mean, I've talked to other presidents.
I'm sure you
and I
have.
give them their advice, but I would say that if universities in the United States, if they give in and to ideological pressures, we lose our universities for what they are. Universities are very, very independent, and there's independence of thought.
Trump says to you, I'm going to take all your research money away at UMass, all your research money. All you have to do is sign on the dotted line, and it all continues and then some. You resist that?
I would. I hope he's not listening to the
No,
show.
I'm serious. I mean, that's a pretty. I mean, I'm glad to hear that. That's a pretty tough decision to make.
Yeah, the bottom line is you don't have a university if you give in to ideological pressures or anything like that. University should be a place where conservative points of view are heard, where liberal points of view, and anything in between. But universities can't give in to become a government spokesperson, or we can't hire faculty in physics or in chemistry, and we say, well, you have to not believe in climate change. And we can't run a university that way. We can't hire people who say, oh, there's no prejudice, no racial bias in America anymore. It's all gone. No, we don't want to be that kind of university, and we will never be that kind of a university. I'll tell you one quick story. I read the Supreme Court decision on affirmative action. I didn't agree with it, but we decided within the UMass system that we're going to comply with this, but we're going to keep to our principles. We complied with the order, and we have a more diverse campus at UMass Amherst and at our law school as a result of it.
How'd you do that?
By reading the decision and saying, let's be more aggressive about going after
recruitment,
people.
You mean?
Yeah, recruit and not using racial. It's where people come from. It's their economic background, and if you could do it that way, and you'll become more diverse. So it's just sort of keeping at it. So I don't want to put the university at risk in any way, shape, or manner. But universities have to be independent.
So you mentioned climate change denying. What do you tell these kids now that are coming in to go to climate studies, or for that matter, engineering and coding and all that kind
Wasn't
of
your
stuff?
big speech on climate tech? You were
Yes. Look, we've entered into what I call the post-truth era. It's not just in the United States. It's actually around the world. You see it in other countries where facts and evidence and data and science don't seem to matter anymore. Everybody thinks they have a right to an opinion, even if the opinion is not based on any facts and evidence. I think our higher education institutions are the only answer to that. Doing fact-based research, that's one of the great things about investigative research is you get facts, you get data, and that's how you make decisions. If we give up on that, we have to be the ones that will take on this notion of the post-truth era, which is a real problem.
Did you serve with Moynihan, who with the famous line, "You're entitled to your own opinion, not entitled to your own facts"? Senator Moynihan from New York, was he gone when you got there?
He was gone, I believe, when I got there. I have met him several times, and very much enjoyed all my interaction with him.
You know, I wanted to ask you, since Marty, me and you were in Congress for quite some time. I mean, what do you think is going to happen? Are we going to, if Trump, assuming Trump does not run for a third term, are we in the situation for the long term? Money in politics, no term limits. What do you think about term limits? You took a little hot water. You were the term limit guy too.
I always voted for them, but I thought that it was dumb if only one district or one person does it. Then you end up in a situation where your representative doesn't have any clout. But
is that why you and Frank Phillips almost came to blows in our studio? Was it over term limits?
No, I think it was over trust funds.
Okay.
Oh, that was a good one.
I hope.
Frank, you listening? Good. I'm sorry.
Right after the show.
Go ahead.
The campaign finance system is a mess. I worked 7 years with John McCain and Russ Feingold and Chris Shays. We passed a bill that the Supreme Court ruled was constitutional in a 5-4 vote. Sandra Day O'Connor's husband got sick, and she left the court to take care of her husband. And the court went from 5-4 in favor of to Citizens United, 4-5 the other way around. I don't see any end to it, Margie. I really don't see. I think the campaign finance system is broken, it's corrupt, and I don't see it changing given the composition of the court. Term limits will never pass. I mean, a 12 year term limit or even an 18. I respect people that stay there a long time, but there are plenty of other things that people could do and be productive other than staying in the Congress.
So what's the recovery?
And I will say one thing that Jim mentioned. If members of Congress are afraid of losing their jobs, that's bad for the country, because you don't want someone relying on, like they need to have that for a job. You don't want people like that in Congress.
Well, that's what a lot of them are saying behind closed doors, that they don't want to be primary, so they're going to go along.
No, absolutely.
But what do you see as if you are not on the Trump bandwagon, what do you see as the solution to make things a little bit better here?
The American public has to come to a conclusion at some point that they want change. They don't want this. They haven't done it yet, though. I mean, they haven't stepped up and said, wait a minute, we need everyone to try to work together and work these problems out. The other thing is the Democratic Party is going to have to find a way to get a message that resonates with people in the middle of the country. The Democrats will never win the White House.
Well, it's good to have two leaders from New York City if you want to resonate in the middle of the country, don't you think?
There's a culture in the country that sometimes George W. Bush used to always say to me, Marty, you guys at the East Coast and the West Coast, you don't get the culture in the center of the country. And there's a lot of truth to that. So I think we need to be able to have candidates that win in the West and in Ohio and places like that in the South.
You were listening to BPR on GBH and NEPM. When you mentioned McCain and your alliance with McCain on campaign finance stuff, when you see Lindsey Graham, who is practically glued at the hip of John McCain, now glued to the hip. I don't know if you saw him on Tucker Carlson a week or so ago saying Trump in 28, 4 more years. I assume most listeners know that's obviously violative of the Constitution. And not only loyalty to this president, but loyalty to a president who has never missed an opportunity to disparage the honor of one of the truly great human beings I only met twice. You had a close relationship with. What causes a human being?
I watched the relationship between Lindsey Graham was in the House with me.
Yeah, I know.
He was one of the few Republicans that get on to campaign finance reform, and I watched the relationship between John McCain and Lindsey Graham grow. Then Lindsey got elected to the Senate, and they traveled all over the world together. Their families were close. It's hard for me to. It's a prime example of somebody being afraid that they're targeted and they're going to lose a primary. But the Lindsey Graham that I knew stood up to power. I mean, he's a different person than he was.
Okay, we only have 2 minutes left. So one of the many things Marjorie and I fight about, besides teachers' unions and term limits, is we fight about whether or not it's important that UMass Amherst has the best food in the dining rooms of any school in America. How many years in a row you won this thing?
Yeah, 9 years in a row.
Okay, I've eaten there. It is unbelievable.
Yep.
It costs a lot of money, I know, but I assume, and this is a serious thing, it's a huge recruitment thing. Is it not?
It is. Before a student decides where, and by the way, at the University of Massachusetts, most of the revenue we get comes from students that come. It doesn't come, we get about a 23 or 24% subsidy from the state, so we need to attract students, and that's the number one thing that attracts students to UMass Amherst. I'm trying like heck to get the other campuses to have the same food service over a period of time. I hope we can get there. Yes, it attracts students. Students look at the quality of housing. They look at the quality of food service. And that the data is indisputable on that. And it's critically important if you want students to come.
So how come your food's so good?
It's farm to table. They've worked at it for years and years and years. It used to be Bowdoin and UMass used to go back and forth, 1-2, 1-2. Well, if you're Bowdoin, it's a little 80,000, 85,000 to go there, and they have the money. And we've got like 30,000 meals that every day that. But they've worked it. A guy named Ken Toon is in charge of that program, and it is awesome, and there's pride in it. They run the UMass Club here on 1 Beacon Street in Boston, too. But it's critically important from a business perspective to get students to come. And I'm telling you, I get more. I'm going to Family Weekend in 2 weeks, and the families will be talking about how great the food is it's unbelievable. It attracts people.
Great to see you, Marty, man.
Great to see you.
Don't be a stranger.
Thank
Be
you.
well.
Great to see you.
Take care.
Thank you very much for coming in. We've been speaking with the president of the University of Massachusetts System, Marty Meehan. President Meehan, thank you very much. We're going to say goodbye to those of you listening on NEPM. We're grateful that you tuned in, but make sure to tune in to the fabulous 413 starting at 3 o'clock this afternoon. The show continues here in Boston. Coming up after the new news, our monthly transit panel. Robert Putnam, the guy who wrote the famous Bowling Alone book, he's going to talk to us as well. We're going to talk to our transit panel about Trump cuts to transportation efforts around here. I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browdy. Listen to BPR and GBH and NEPM and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. We'll be right back after the noontime news.
You're listening to Boston Public Radio with Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan. Just ahead, more smart conversation about what's going on in our community. Stay with us here on GBH 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you.
And Cornerstone at Canton, an assisted living community with services designed to help seniors age in place, offering respite and trial stay options to help during recovery or when exploring new living arrangements. More at cornerstonecanton.com. Start your week off right with detectives who are rarely wrong. Mystery, mayhem, and more await with Midsummer Murders at 8 and Foyle's War at 9. Tonight on GBH 44.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Jim Browdy, ahead on Hour 2 of BPR. It's our monthly transit panel with former House of Representatives Transportation Chair Bill Straus and former Assistant Transportation Secretary Chris Dempsey. Talk about Trump's infrastructure cuts aimed at blue states, the future of high-speed rail, Boston's delivery scooter angst, and a topic near and dear to Marjorie's heart, of course, banning driving in bus lanes.
I'm Marjorie Egan, then it's Harvard's Robert Putnam, the man behind the landmark book Bowling Alone on What Ails America, an isolated, partisan 2025. He'll give us his prescription to reverse the decades-long trend of division and advice on which bowling league to join if you really need gutter guards. All that plus two more things next on the second hour of BPR 89.7 GBH.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. Congressional Republicans and Democrats appear no closer to breaking an impasse as the government shutdown stretches into a sixth day. The Senate takes another vote this afternoon. House Speaker Mike Johnson urged Senate Democrats to back the short-term spending measure that passed the House.
The ball is in the court of the Senate Democrats. There's only a handful of people in the country who can solve this problem. There's 47 Democrats. Well, 46 and one who caucuses as an independent, I think.
Last night, President Trump told reporters federal workers were in the process of being fired. He had threatened dismissals instead of furloughs if Democrats did not drop their demands that the GOP restore health care spending affecting pandemic-era Affordable Care Act subsidies, Medicaid, and access to programs for immigrants in the U.S. legally. Negotiators from Israel and Hamas are holding talks in Egypt today on a possible end to the war in Gaza. It's been almost 2 years. President Trump and Arab countries are urging both sides to reach a deal, and soon. NPR's Carrie Kahn reports there are still major sticking points.
President Trump warned Hamas if it doesn't cede power and release all 48 hostages, dead and alive, it faces, quote, obliteration. Trump also told Israel to pause its bombing of Gaza. Israeli airstrikes over the weekend killed dozens, according to Gaza health officials. Arab mediators are pressuring Hamas to negotiate at a time when it is facing great losses on the battlefield. Israel and the U.S. are demanding Hamas release all hostages quickly. Hamas says it needs time to locate the dead. There are disputes over which Palestinian prisoners Israel release in exchange for the hostages, how Hamas will disarm and relinquish power, and over Israeli troop withdrawal from Gaza. Carrie Kahn, NPR News, Tel Aviv.
The new parent company of CBS is hiring Free Press founder Barry Weiss as the editor-in-chief of its news division. Skydance Media is also set to acquire her center-right news site, known for its sharp criticism of the news media as liberal. NPR's David Folkenflik reports it's part of a move seeking to appeal to conservative viewers.
In recent months, the former and new ownership of CBS have announced a series of moves. The cancellation of Stephen Colbert's late night show, which often satirized President Trump, paying Trump $16 million to settle his lawsuit over a 60 Minutes interview of then Vice President Kamala Harris last year, naming a conservative former think tank chief to be an ombudsman. Arrives as a top executive, she is to work in partnership with CBS News President Tom Sabrowski. She has no experience in broadcast and is unlikely to direct logistics, but Weiss is to have the remit to reshape journalistic sensibilities at the network of Edward R. Murrow and Walter Cronkite. David Folkenflik, NPR News.
The Dow is down 82 points. This is NPR.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. A new poll from Mass Inc. shows that Bostonians believe Boston Mayor Michelle Wu's administration should do more to address the high cost of housing in the city. Poll was conducted for the statewide pro-housing advocacy group, Abundant Housing Massachusetts, and found that 81% of surveyed residents need to take action to address Boston's housing shortage and allow more homes to be built throughout the city. Poll also found that some 43% of respondents describe the city's government's efforts to keep housing affordable as poor, compared to just 22% who say City Hall's handling of housing costs are good or are excellent. And Wednesday could be a big day at the State House for pizza. A hearing on the legislature's Joint Committee on State Administration and Regulatory Oversight is set to include a discussion of a bill that would make bar pizza the official pizza of Massachusetts. The dish is typically cooked in a small round pan, served crispy, but without any crust around the edge. The bill is introduced by State Senator Mike Brady of the 2nd Plymouth and Norfolk District, a place where bar pizza is very popular. In sports, Monday Night Football, it's the Chiefs and the Jaguars. Baseball playoffs, LA Dodgers at Philadelphia is the early game. Late game is Cubs at the Brewers, and in the forecast, a beautiful couple of days in store. Lots of sunshine, high-low 80s today, mostly sunny 80 tomorrow. Looks like rain, though, on Wednesday. I'm Henry Santoro. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Made in Cookware. Made in Cookware is crafted by chefs for use in restaurants and home kitchens around the world. Their cookware can be found at madeincookware.com. This is NPR.
Welcome to hour number 2 of BPR and GBH and NEPM. Jim Brady and Marjorie Egan. We are streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. We're going to be back at the Boston Public Library tomorrow, we hope. And,
no, we hope. No, don't say that.
We're going to be there. We're going to be there. We're going to be there. We're going to be there tomorrow. We're going to be there Wednesday and Friday.
Yes.
Let's be positive. Hello again, Jim.
That's it. Okay. We're going to start the hour with our monthly transit panel. We're joined now in Studio 3 by Chris Dempsey, former Assistant Secretary of Transportation for the state, currently of the urban planning firm Spec Dempsey. How are you, Chris?
Great to be back, Jim.
And joining us on Zoom is former State Rep Bill Straus. He was the House Chair of the Transportation Committee in the State House. Bill, it's good to see you. Thanks for joining us.
It's my pleasure, and I hope it's coming through clearly.
Yes, it is coming through clearly. So let's start with you, Chris Dempsey. We just asked the same question to Marty Meehan, who runs the UMass system, about how they're faring. I guess it would be 9 months into the Trump presidency. Every time I see the paper, there's another story about transit money getting cut. So how is the transit system doing?
Can you believe it's only been 9 months?
No.
It feels a little longer than that sometimes.
A lot longer.
I had to look it up. It's like, was the election really just last year? So it does feel, unfortunately, like transit has a bit of a target on its back with the Trump administration. They are going around from agency to agency now and doing a couple different things. One is they're saying that these systems are unsafe, and they're requiring those agencies to report on what they're doing to address crime. And I want to talk about that and how I think some of those numbers are overstated. The second thing they're doing is they're rescinding funding for capital projects like transit expansions or new buses and subway cars to agencies, saying that that the funding is in some way being used for race-based policies that they're saying are unconstitutional. We can talk about that as well. But it's sort of like issue after issue here. I think the Trump administration is not sympathetic to transit. I think they see it as a really healthy target for the kind of conversation that they want to have nationally, kind of making cities look bad, look like places that aren't working that well. And it's really transit riders and cities that are going to suffer from that approach.
Well, transit cities that are run by Democratic mayors. And it seems, Bill Straus, correct me if I'm wrong, unlike what they did with the $18 billion on hold in New York City and whatever the other place is, Chicago, the cuts to that Alston multimodal thing and Roxbury cut had nothing. Am I right about this? Had nothing to do with the shutdown. These are pre-shutdown. So if you were planning, if you're the Secretary of Transportation, or you're the chair, as you were for many years, of the House Transportation Committee of the Senate, how do you do any planning about anything that's dependent on federal funding if you don't know if Donald Trump on a whim is going to attempt, even if it's not legal, to pull the money that's committed?
Well, I was in any of those roles, what I would do is keep planning these projects, keep pushing ahead, because the reality is, the timeline for such projects goes many years. And so you can't put these projects, and we have some, obviously, you mentioned Alston, you can't put them in cold storage and just give up. So what you have to do, and in the case of Alston, the planning, the discussions are still going on. And if I could find a positive on the Alston project, what's going on is a rethinking of, from a transportation standpoint, what's the Alston project all about? It's not just a highway project for the turnpike. It's in terms of rail as well. So the planning has to go ahead. The local permitting should still proceed on these things. And I hope I'm right about this. Donald Trump leaves office no later than January in just over 3 years. I hope there is not another term. Unfortunately, that seems to be a topic of discussion from time to time.
Let's talk about the whole attack on transit systems. There was that horrible, horrible incident of the woman in North Carolina that was murdered.
Charlotte.
By a mentally ill guy while she was sitting in front of him on the train. But then he's going after the T in Boston. And I don't think bad things happen on the T from time to time, but I wouldn't certainly call it a crime fest down there.
Yeah. I think it's important to take safety on transit very seriously, and I'm supportive of efforts that the T would take to make the system even safer than it is today. But by and large, the MBTA is an incredibly safe system. I mean, I was on the Green Line yesterday, and it was packed with families returning from the Dana-Farber Cancer Walk on a beautiful Sunday in Boston. Little kids, parents, people really of all ages who were totally safe and comfortable without any threat in the world. There's been particular focus on South Station, and the Trump administration has worked up about that. I'll remind you that this is a place that is being invested into the tune of like $1 billion to have some of the most luxurious apartments in the entire city built in that new tower above South Station. I don't think they would do that if it were a crime-infested place. But the numbers here in South Station for property and violent crime in 2024 were 30 incidents in the entire year, when that station served 12 million passengers over the course of that year. 30 incidents for 12 million passengers is not a lot. It's basically on par with Logan Airport, which we don't think is crime infested in any way. So these statistics, or these claims, I should say, are really overblown. By and large, it's a very safe system, which doesn't mean we can't make it safer.
But we should give a little background. I think we jumped over what was going on. Sean Duffy, who's the Secretary of Transportation, writes to the T and says there's safety issues. I think, was that after the older woman was pushed off the bus?
That's right.
Thing? Yeah.
And then someone was hit with a belt or
right,
something
and he says we have some serious issues about safety. I think Phil Lang, the head of the T, responded in an
appropriate way. Totally
you did.
Appropriate way. Yeah.
But I'm going to ask you, Bill Straus, the exact same question. Everywhere you turn, if you happen to be in a place that did not vote for Donald Trump, and if you have a governor and a mayor who have the courage to speak up against Donald Trump, it seems to me that you're playing a totally different kind of game with transportation. I know you said the planning goes along, but you can't tell me in a piece of your brain you're not thinking all the time, what do I do to try to ignore the attention of Sean Duffy, who's another Trump sycophant?
So what you say is correct. There's the direct transit issues of planning for individual projects, but clearly the kinds of things like Duffy's letter to Phil Ang are part of what we, I think, clearly see after 9 months is an expanded roadmap where any number of topics, environmental, housing, economic development, and transportation, are part of a clearly laid out, we used to call it Project 2025, now it's the Trump administration 2025 plan. And so letters like that are clearly designed for a wider administration, and with the shutdown in its concluding its first week, clearly they, and the president has acknowledged this, they see this as an opportunity for them, whether it's transit projects or any other kinds of grant programs, to implement a broader agenda. So transportation is being dragged in service of what they think is the goals they want to pursue in Washington.
Well, you know, before the shutdown, back in mid-September, the Department of Transportation told Boston officials that it's not going to deliver on this 2022 pledge to pay $20 million towards rebuilding 3 major streets in Roxbury. And this is the part if this is true, I'm stunned. But you tell me, the grant, according to a Mass Streets blog, the great cancellation of this is part of a nationwide wave of funding cuts for projects that reportedly aren't sufficiently focused on increasing traffic with additional motor vehicle travel.
Well, it's just what Boston needs is more traffic, right?
So is this because we're anti any kind of alternative transportation? Is that what this is about?
So I think there's 2 things at play here. One is there does seem to be a theme of any time that there's a conversion of space from a general purpose lane that's open to all traffic to some sort of bus or transit lane, the Trump administration seems opposed to that. I think that's probably good politics for them. It's not good policy, especially in a place like Boston where so many people move by transit. I think the second thing that's happening there is that Mayor Wu acquitted herself so well in her congressional testimony earlier this year, really knocked it out of the park, and has become, in a lot of ways, a symbol of some of the resistance to the Trump administration. And so they're especially happy to be targeting Boston. Now, it's very ironic that Sean Duffy, the transportation secretary for Trump, would do this because, of course, Boston is part of what made Sean Duffy famous in the first place.
Explain why he became famous for those few who don't know.
He was a character or a participant in, I think it was the 1993 MTV Real World.
That's right.
Which was hosted in Boston. They had that fire station right off of Charles Street in the Back Bay. That's how he became famous. He leveraged that into running for Congress, which he won. Then he had a bunch of Fox News appearances. Trump liked him on Fox News, and all of a sudden, he's transportation secretary. That's what it takes in the Trump administration to get to that kind of position.
Well, isn't he the guy that said the problem in Massachusetts, so we have to push more marriages and more babies?
Our birth rate
you get
isn't
more
high
money
enough.
for transportation if you have those kinds. You're going to say something, Bill Straus?
Wow.
Yeah. One of the reasons transportation gets drawn into this, sometimes forget, is transportation is the way in which historically either economic opportunity, access to housing, access to additional space has been effectuated. That's been true here and around the country. And in many cities around the country, and I know Chris knows this from his work, highways were built through downtown areas, rail lines designed as sometimes barriers and impediments to people moving around and getting into either access to jobs or, as I say, housing. And so to the extent some of these grants, and that was true in the Chicago grant that got canceled, these are to remedy some of these wrongs, which go back 100 years, where parts of cities and other areas, and it happened throughout the South for sure, were isolated because of the way roads were designed and built. And they don't like these kinds of programs. That's clear.
Talking to Bill Straus, former House member, House Chair of the Transportation Committee, former Assistant Secretary of Transportation here, Chris Dempsey. So I've told the story only about 4,000 times, so why not 4,001? 30 plus years ago, I'm in France, and I go on something TGV, Très Grande Vitesse, and it was a super bullet, wildly fast train. And I came back to the United States and I said, I can't wait till we have one here. And the reason I know we're going to have them here is because as much as I care about it, multiply it by 1,000, and that's how much business people care about it, because their goods get to market faster. You can get to New York City in an hour and a half rather than 4 hours. And now it's 30-some years later. I was back in France for a wedding 2 weekends ago. I rode on a commuter train that goes faster than any train in the United States. And we're celebrating, we talked to Christopher Muther from the Globe about this, Acela Next Gen, Bill Straus. And obviously it's a bit of an upgrade and some good things. But is it an overstatement for me to say that in my lifetime and my kids, we will never have high-speed rail in the United States of America?
I think that is an overstatement.
Great.
I think that
Go ahead.
How long do you plan to live, Jim? That's the question.
That's right.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Bill.
I saw that line coming.
Okay.
But in all seriousness, we do have the upgrade, which, as you mentioned, he wrote about in the Globe, of the Acela line. It's capable of speeds of, I think, up to 160 miles an hour.
Yeah, as soon as they replace the tracks, it'll be able to go 160 miles an hour. That's right.
But you got to have the capacity in the train. And I think that still is the future in the United States for these upgrades. And my understanding is it's, even though right now the travel times are much the same, these trains are doing well. In fact, I've scheduled a trip on one in a few weeks down to New York, so I could give you a firsthand account later on.
But I was just going to say, every time I go to take the train to New York, I love to take the train to New York. It's so pretty, especially between Providence and all the harbors you go through. But the tracks are like 10 feet from the water in a lot of places. They're not going to be able to be there for that much longer, are they?
Well, I hadn't thought of that in terms of the climate and the change issues, but those are the historic corridors, and I can't imagine what the cost would be to get access rights for new rail corridors. So this is what we have now for traveling, and so those tracks do need to be upgraded, in my view.
Are you as optimistic about someday, somewhere down the line, there'll be real high-speed rail in the United States, Chris Dempsey?
I'm not that optimistic. I wish I were, because I'm also a huge fan of high-speed rail. I've ridden the TGV. I've ridden high-speed rail in Taiwan, which 40 years ago was not a very developed place and really leapfrogged us. But it's slow going out there, and we've got an administration that's pretty hostile to this kind of thing at the moment. So again, it's
but in fairness, Democratic administrations weren't doing anything about it either, and there was a ton of money in California for it under, I believe, a Democratic governor, and nothing
multiple
happened.
Democratic governors
happened there again.
They're still working on it. I mean, they promised that project would be done, I think, in 2020, 2021, something like that. It's 2025, and it's nowhere near being done. It does not speak well of our ability to do large infrastructure projects, and it's why I'm more of an incrementalist when it comes to these kinds of things. I think there's a lot we could do with less money in some of our urban cores and some of our commuting patterns. It's not that I'm opposed to high-speed rail. I just am not always sure it should be the focus.
Yeah, but with all due respect, I'm not ready to bike to New York City. So let me just tell you that, which is what Chris Dempsey would do. So Bill Straus, first, we want to talk about this nightmare with the service plazas, and you have to opt out of this. Do you want to tell people why you're not doing this, Chris Dempsey?
Yeah, so I have a lot I want to say about this as a veteran of running procurements in state government, so I have sympathy for what's happening on the inside. But my firm works for global partners on an entirely unrelated project. We have nothing to do with the service plazas, but just given that we are working for them on something totally different, I'm going to have to kind of punt these questions to my friend Bill.
Okay, and global, by the way, there were two finalists. They were the losing bidder. This Apple Green thing won and abruptly withdrew the other day. Apple Green, the construction end was going to be done by John Fish, one of the most powerful people in Massachusetts from Suffolk Construction. We asked the governor the other day if there was the Fish connection was pivotal here, and here's what she had to say. And you don't see any indication that there was a special deal because John Fish from Suffolk Construction was connected to the winning bid?
No, not at all. But it's also beside the board because the winning bidder has decided to withdraw after lease negotiations. So we're currently evaluating next steps.
And I've never seen anything like this in the state. Bill Straus, maybe you can give a big picture or explain this whole thing. Is after Applegreen pulls out, Suffolk Construction, which no longer has anything to do with it, is trashing the bid of Global, which admittedly did a big lobbying campaign, and some of it may have gotten a little bit nasty. Do you know what's going on that we mere mortals in the public don't know, Bill Straus?
I have no inside information in the sense of, emails or texts. Or
right, but however.
In it. But my sense is what we've had for many, many years in all kinds of procurement questions in Massachusetts is an issue, problem, if you will, where the customer, the agency that's going to get the product, so to speak, is also the one running the procurement. This is a bigger issue than transportation. And so in many areas in Massachusetts over the last 20 or 30 years, we've separated that process. And I think that that's maybe going forward what's called for here, because it's not just that a procurement process be run well, it's that it be seen as running well, and the public confidence is there. So it wouldn't surprise me if the administration ended up with a procurement or reprocurement on this, so that all players now, knowing more about what the state is looking for in terms of the ultimate project, can look at it and maybe say, we want to submit a bid. I think long-term, there's some short-term issues, but long-term, I think that's in the public interest to have a reprocurement. And maybe there's the possibility that they can have the help of administration and finance, some outside but Commonwealth run agency to view the information and give the confidence to the public and the parties that this really is a solid process leading to what we definitely need, which is an upgrade and improvements in those plazas.
Do you think Applegreen got
the one I go to is in terrible shape.
Do you think Applegreen got a special deal because of the John Fish Suffolk connection?
I suspect, and this is only from reading the
I understand
news, that to the extent their proposal kicked in capital money, less rent, but more capital money in new buildings on a very prompt schedule or an earlier schedule than other parties, and there were other parties that submitted bids, that probably helped them because, again, the buildings themselves, the layout of the plazas need capital work. And a bidder who went that way, which apparently they did, probably was looked at more favorably. Although I don't have first-hand information.
I understood that. I understand.
I just want to ask you, Bill Straus. You said that they're in terrible shape. I mean, I don't spend a lot of time at the rest stop, so I don't know. I mean, are we worse in other states? I mean, or is Rhode Island doing better, or New York doing better, or what's so terrible?
I couldn't say for sure, but I'll be. I travel Route 24 typically, and
Bridgewater,
and the Bridgewater ones, and they're tired looking.
Yeah.
I'm less familiar with the ones on the turnpike itself, but again, there's no question. New buildings, new assets, new capabilities at these plazas is something that's needed. And if there is a reprocurement, it's my hope that any parties participating think in terms of the capital investment.
We're running out of time, but when you walked into the studio, Chris, I asked you what your firm was doing, what you were involved in.
Oh, yeah.
And you said you just got back from Hawaii, and I said, was it a vacation? And you said no. Can you tell people what Spec Dempsey is involved in out there?
Yeah, so your listeners will remember that almost exactly 2 years ago, there was a devastating wildfire in Lahaina on the island of Maui. It killed about 100 people. It's the deadliest wildfire in at least a century in the United States. Leveled this historic community to the ground. And we've been hired to help bring back that community by working on their street layouts and street designs. They had this really wonderful fabric and network of smaller streets that were very walkable. In a lot of ways, Lahaina was sort of like the Nantucket of the Pacific.
Oh.
It had this wonderful whaling history, but also even an earlier history where it was the seat of Hawaiian royal power in the 19th century. And there were some people on the island that were saying, great, now that basically everything is burned down, this is our chance to widen all the roads and make it more of kind of a suburban style. And others that were saying, gee, we actually want to keep it really special, even though it doesn't meet the standards that our county has for roads. And we've basically come in and said, the latter is right. We should really keep these roads kind of out of standard because it will bring back that magic that they had before the fire.
And there's still people missing. Am I not right about that, or am I wrong?
I think there may. Why I said about 100 is because I think that number changes a little bit depending on what they discover and how they look for people. It's a community that had a lot of immigrants actually from the Philippines that were there, so maybe not everybody was documented that was in that space. But it is, it's essentially totally leveled today. It's gravel and rubble, but there are so many wonderful memories that people have and this strong desire to build back. And we are absolutely honored to be a small part of that.
That's great. Keep us surprised. Good to see you both, gentlemen. Bill Straus,
Thank you
Chris
very
Dempsey.
much.
Thank you.
Appreciate you gentlemen and your time. We've been speaking with Chris Dempsey, former Assistant Secretary of Transportation for Massachusetts, currently of the urban planning firm Spec Dempsey, and former State Rep Bill Straus, who served as chair on the Transportation Committee in the State House. Thanks again. Coming up after this quick break, Harvard's Robert Putnam, author of the book Bowling Alone, joins us to talk about how we can weave back together the fraying threads of our social fabric. Houston Browdy, I'm Marjorie, and you're listening to BPR on 89.7 GBH, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
Beth Macy says she grew up in a poor and dysfunctional family, but her Ohio hometown was rich with diversity and community back then.
In my hometown, which was a hotbed of abolitionist activity and an underground railroad haven, there were now Confederate flags flying.
Hear how Macy returned home to uncover what changed for her new book on all things considered from NPR News.
Today at 4, here on GBH News 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And Gentle Giant Moving Company, official moving and storage provider for the head of the Charles Regatta, employing rowers and athletes since 1980 and currently hiring to join their team. More at gentlegiant.com. And the Cape Cod Foundation, committed to building resources to support community life on Cape Cod, including environmental conservation, arts and culture, and community development. Learn more at capecodfoundation.org.
Welcome back to BPR. I'm Jim Browdy. She's Marjorie Egan. We're streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Back at the library tomorrow, Wednesday, and Friday. We have talked a lot on the show in the last 25 years about the book Bowling Alone. So much so that you'd think the team here that works with us would have picked up on the hint and actually called up the author, political scientist Robert Putnam, before today. Better late than never. We're joined now on Zoom by Harvard's Robert Putnam. The New York Times described him as the poet laureate of civil society. In Bowling Alone, I assume you know, Putnam sounded the alarm on what ails our civil society in America, arguing that what holds us together as communities comes from social ties, places like social clubs, churches, and yes, bowling leagues. He's written many other books. The most recent is The Upswing, How America Came Together a Century Ago, and How We Can Do It Again, is the subject of this 2023 documentary called Join or Die.
If you were worried about crime in your neighborhood, you might say, let's put 10% more cops on the beat. Or you might say, how about having 10% more people know their neighbor's first name? Well, there's no question that that latter is a more effective crime-fighting strategy. Your chances of dying, actually, your chances of dying are high. But your chances of dying over the next year are cut in half by joining one group.
Robert Putnam is the Peter and Isabel Malkin Professor of Public Policy at Harvard University's JFK School of Government Emeritus. Bob Putnam, we are thrilled to have you here. Thanks so much for your time.
Thanks, Jim and Marjorie. I'm glad to be with you. Actually, again, I think we may have spoken once or twice in the past, but be for me. You may know I don't know whether you're a fan of my work. I'm a fan of your work.
Oh, well, thank you.
We have been told
because
that. That is really an honor.
We have
Bob.
cited you about, I would say, maybe 500 times the last couple of years. So
great to see you.
Great to talk to you again. But as Jim said, you wrote this article that turned into a book. The article was, I think, 1995. Then it became the book Bowling Alone. So all these years later, now 30 years, we apparently are still bowling alone based on what you wrote in The Upswing, or are we not?
Oh, it's worse.
It's worse.
I described in the original article in that book, I described the fact that from roughly speaking 1970 until about the time I wrote that book, 1995 to 2000 when it was finally published, there had been a decline in all forms of what I called social capital. That is just connections among people. We were becoming more socially isolated. So that was published in 2020. It's a quarter century later, and the trends have continued, if anything, more rapidly downward. We are really, really alone now. And if I can, I want to quote a fan of my work. He's a guy that you may have heard of, a guy named Steve Bannon.
Oh, do tell.
I never heard of him, Bob, but go ahead anyway. Go ahead.
Wow. I would think he'd be alone a lot myself.
Wait for it. Steve Bannon has said several times, including most recently a couple of months ago, back in the day when he and, what's his name, the guy, Trump, were trying to figure out how to get Trump elected. Steve Bannon, read a book by a crazy Harvard professor. I'm the crazy Harvard professor, called Bowling Alone. And he inferred from that book correctly that if Americans were increasingly socially isolated and alone, that would make them more vulnerable to appeals from a kind of authoritarian populism.
Yeah.
So he decided to follow that strategy. It turns out he was right. What can I say? I mean, I knew that at the time. I said that at the time. But of course, now we're talking back when I wrote that book, which it was half a century ago. When I was doing the work on it, a half century ago, I didn't know I didn't know that the name of the person to exploit that would be Donald Trump. But it is true that the best predictor then and now of who would vote for Trump is social isolation. So if you want to know who's to blame for the predicament you're in, you've got him on your show.
Well, it's you don't have to go to Steve Bannon. I don't know what your relationship is like with Vivek Murthy, the former Surgeon General. But when we did a segment or two on the show about his piece about loneliness in this country, and we talked about you that day. I mean, that is essentially a variation on that same theme. So do you go so far as to say, Bob Putnam, that there's for lack of a better expression, a causal connection between literal and figurative bowling alone and the election, the ascension of Donald Trump?
Yes. I'm being pretty bold in saying that. I recognize that, and I may be not the most credible witness because I'm talking about me, but there's been a lot of studies now of what predicts support, both in the past and today, support for Trump. It is social isolation. Obviously, Trump is a symptom of that, a consequence, really, of that trend. He didn't cause it. The roots of the trend go back, I don't know, a half century before Trump became visible. Now, that doesn't exactly say what we should do about it. I didn't then know, of course I didn't know about Trump. I thought there would be somebody like him, and that, to my regret, turns out to have been true. I think that honestly, Jim and Marjorie, I now get many more lecturing invitations than I did even a year ago, much less back in the day, because somehow people have come to believe, like Bannon, that I predicted it, and they think I must know how to fix it. The second is not quite true. So, yeah, if you want to talk about what to do about it, we can talk about that, or we can talk about lots of other things.
Well, we're going to get to what we do want to talk to you about what we would do. We're talking to Bob Putnam, who, among many important books, has written Bowling Alone.
Well, you mentioned, answer my first question, that things have gotten worse. So, I mean, we love to blame social media for everything now. But that's not what you think, or correct me if I'm wrong. Why are we worse?
Well, screen time is part of the problem. Back when I originally wrote the book, I thought there wasn't. I mean, the internet and social media didn't exist.
Exactly.
But you thought TV was the problem. I mean, didn't you? Yeah.
And that's sort of been replaced. Well, that's not the right word, actually. It turns out, this is bizarre. The average American now spends, I've forgotten the exact number, but it's something like 5 or 6 hours a day on social media. And I thought, well, at least that's replacing television. But it isn't. We're watching more TV now and spending more time alone on Facebook or one of these other social media sites. It's astonishing how much of our time we're spending in front of a screen and not interacting with, or at least not actually interacting with the screen. I mean, I actually have met the two of you, so we have a personal connection, but I'm seeing you now. Well, maybe there's a connection, but most people are not even doing that.
Yeah.
It's stunning. So I don't think that's the only thing. We can turn to that maybe in a second. I don't think by any means that social media and screens are the most important thing, but they are a contributing factor, yes.
What is the most important thing?
Well, you're going to be shocked, Jim, because I have come to a different view in the course of writing my last book, The Upswing. I came to a sort of different view. The Upswing, just to say quickly, looks at many of these same questions about social disconnection, about political polarization, about economic inequality, and so on, over a 125-year period. The scope of that book, The Upswing, basically runs from the end of the 19th century until now, 125 years in round numbers. And in that book, we looked at lots of different variables, and we tried to see, well, what's the earliest of those trends to move? What's you just like you're doing the stock market, you want to know what's a leading indicator. And what we were shocked to discover was it wasn't economics, it was the moral dimension of change. And I could tell you much more than you want to know about the contours of that.
Well, tell us some. I mean, I know you've written that people are less honest now, that you had a wonderful thing about the Boy Scout oath, being trustworthy, courteous, kind, obedient, brave, clean, the whole Boy Scout thing. And I thought, wow, that sounds so quaint. But, I mean, that's part of what you were talking about, the demise of that sort of thinking.
That's right. It actually, initially, the first place you can see this is in evangelical Protestant theology, when at that time, Christian theology, religion was mostly focused on how you could get to heaven.
Right.
And it was on you, me. And the evangelical Protestant theologians, in what came to be called sort of a spiritual revival, said, read the darn Sermon on the Mount. The Sermon on the Mount is not how rich people, you should be trying to be rich. It's hard for rich people to get into heaven, except if they have a needle. And I can't anymore repeat. Once upon a time I could recount the whole darn.
You can say it. Keep going.
Sermon on the Mount, but it's all about my place is with the least of them, not the most of them. And the blessed are the poor, not the blessed are the mega billionaires. And so that began among the evangelical Protestants. It spread to all Protestants. Then it spread to the Catholics. Point here. I've forgotten whether either of you is a Catholic, but if either
Marjorie Egan would be
Catholic.
I thought, Margaret, help me. The name of the current Pope,
Leo.
Is Leo what? Leo the 14th.
I think so. I don't know the number.
Is because this period that I'm talking about, back in the 19th century, the idea that the moral conviction that you had to worry about poor people, the form that took in the Catholic Church was Pope Leo XIII. It's not an accident that Leo XIV took the title Leo XIV. From the point of view of the good guys, it's an extremely hopeful thing. I have to drop names here. That's all I do. Marjorie, you may know that Pope Francis invited me to the Vatican to come talk with him about how to fix. And anyway,
what'd you think?
I thought a lot of him, actually. I thought he was a big moral voice.
Yeah, me too.
Here's the main point I wanted to make. It was that moral reawakening, not just in the Catholic Church, not even among Christians, but among all sorts of people, including, in the end, all sorts of non-religious people who came to the conclusion or remembered this very basic moral position that I am my brother's keeper, the golden rule. I have obligations to other people, not just to myself. I mean, there's no religion, there's no moral system in the world that doesn't say, at least put other people on the same level as you. Maybe you have obligations even more to them. Well, that's what came first the last time we went through this process. And I'm compressing a whole book into one sentence or two here. But the last time we fixed this kind of dilemma that we're in right now, what came first, even before bowling leagues, was the idea that we have obligations to other people. And therefore, I'm committed by my theory, and I do believe, until we begin to have a moral reawakening. I want to emphasize, I'm not talking about sexual morality. It's not sexual morality people were worried about. It's just this fundamental idea that I am my brother's keeper. Well, okay, now I can see you both thinking, come on, we didn't invite Putnam on here as a preacher.
No, we're not thinking that at all.
But it seems to me, though, we have to distinguish between black evangelicals and white evangelicals. I think they're very, very different. But the white evangelicals, the ones you see with crosses around their neck that drives me insane, I talk about this all the time, that are demonizing the poor and demonizing immigrants and demonizing, I mean, they have taken a dark turn, a lot of these white evangelicals, when they're saying that maybe empathy isn't such a great idea. As Deval Patrick, the governor, said when we talked to him a couple of weeks ago, he said, they're not reading the same Bible that I'm reading. So they seem to have taken an odd turn, the evangelicals.
They have. I'm not sure it's only them, actually. I'm going to quote from another famous philosopher, a guy named Elon Musk. You may have heard of him.
Yeah.
Elon Musk, on February 28th, I'm reading it because I want to make sure I get the facts straight, said, February 28th of 2025, not that long ago, the fundamental weakness of Western civilization is empathy.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. It's an absolutely upside down morality. Yes, now go back on the issue of contemporary evangelicals. And I have to say, I try very hard to avoid stereotyping. There are many different kinds of Protestant evangelicals now. And there are some that are true to that original obligation back then. I'm talking about, in the 1870s. And look, I'm sorry, I'm now in the business. I'm not an evangelical Protestant. I'm not even Christian, but I'm in the business of trying now to defend the history of evangelical Protestants. Evangelical Protestantism was the source of the emancipation movement among whites in America. Way back in the 1830s. It was an evangelical movement that got white Americans to thinking they had obligations to free the slaves. Okay, there are some, from my point of view, and as I say, I'm not even a Christian, but from my point of view, sometime not that long ago, actually, in terms of centuries, not decades even, many evangelicals lost their way and they sold their birthright for a mess of not pottage, but power. That is, they chose to get in bed with or to make an alliance with this very unchristian person, Trump, and to become really anti-Christian. I mean, I don't need to say to probably anybody listening to me, it's not Christian to be opposed to the stranger, the immigrant. That's not. I mean, Christ himself was an immigrant for a while. After all, come on. It's hard to take the theology of that part of the evangelical movement today seriously, because it's completely inconsistent with the words of the Bible. It's inconsistent with their own history.
We're talking to Bob Putnam. I'm sorry, Margaret.
I wanted to touch on something else I thought was fascinating that you talk about too. That we don't talk to people that are outside of our social group, either economically or politically. We hear this all the time from people who said they had to break up with their boyfriend because he was a Trumpster and they wouldn't, or how families can't
Well,
get
it's
together.
sort of like your
Thanksgiving.
Fox News bubble is what a variation on that theme. Yeah.
So, but you think we need to persevere in that regard and try to talk to people on the other side. Tell us how we're going to do that.
Well, can I just introduce just a bit of jargon? I try to avoid jargon.
Yep.
When I talk about connections, I talk about social capital.
Yes.
There are different kinds of connections and the different types of social capital. The most important distinction is between ties or networks that link me to people like me.
Mm-hmm.
That's called bonding social capital. So my bonding social capital are my ties, friendships, and so on with other elderly, white, male, Jewish professors. That's my bonding social capital.
Okay.
But my bridging social capital are my ties to people of a different generation or a different race or a different age or a different politics. I'm not saying bridging good, bonding bad, because if you get sick, people bring you chicken soup are likely to be your bonding social capital. But a modern democracy like ours needs a lot of bridging social capital. That's just my jargon for saying we need to be able to put ourselves in the shoes of people who are unlike us. I'm now back to where you began the questioning, Marjorie. And what I want to say is we ought to be trying to reach out to, in my case, people who are Trumpsters. Now, just for a second, just 1 second, because I'm not saying we ought to be reaching out and talking to them about politics. That's not the way to begin a new friendship. I am saying the way to bridge is to bond along some other dimension. So if you had somebody here on, or if we were sitting in the room with some Trumpster from the Boston area, I'd begin the conversation by asking, well, do you think the Patriots are actually likely to make it into the playoffs this year? And wasn't that an amazing job yesterday by that young kid? And so on. That is, you see what I'm doing. I'm not going to.
Yes.
I'm bonding along what we share, which is attitudes to the Patriots or the Red Sox or whatever. And that's where I begin. That's a long answer to your and too jargony, Marjorie, but I hope you see what I'm
do you, yes. Bob Putnam, do you practice what you preach?
Yeah, that's a complicated question. I do. I'm on the road a lot, so I don't join as many clubs as I should, but I do, yes. And I'm living part of the time in Cambridge, right in Harvard Square, actually, and part of the time right now I'm up in New Hampshire where we have a second home. And it's very hard to do bridging we live in Harvard Square. It's very hard to find many Trumpsters in Harvard Square to bridge with, but up here there aren't. And we have a neighborhood association right here. I'm the half mile surrounding me here is our neighborhood association, and there are Trumpsters in that. And I do practice that. I do try to reach out and talk to them about, in this case, we would be talking about, the tax rates and I don't know what the local high school football team is doing and so on.
So let me test out an idea. I have a number of obsessions, causes that have gone virtually nowhere, but they continue to be obsessions. And when I was thinking about you, when I knew you were coming last week, I wanted to broach this with you. I am a huge believer in mandatory service for people in this country. Bob Putnam, if you're not watching on YouTube, had his thumb up. And I don't mean military service. If military is what you want to do, fine. But something, work in cities, work in a city that is not yours, some sort of thing. I know that may not pass the laugh test in these times, but wouldn't that be, in many ways, the perfect solution to the problem you've so brilliantly described for decades?
Yeah, I'm formally involved in that national service movement, Jim. So that's why I was raising my thumbs. Yes. Here's the problem with it, if you're not careful, young people are in general very much opposed to that idea because they think it's an unfunded mandate. They think we're saying, well, we screwed the world up, and now you should give up a year of your life to fix the screw up that we caused. And if you phrase it that way, it seems like not really very attractive. You can understand why they don't like that. I think there are ways in which you can make it attractive. Can I mention one
Please.
Example of that? There's something called the American Exchange Program, and it's based basically in Boston, although it's a national program, that has arranged to get kids, graduating seniors all around the country together to spend a week with one another. That is, the folks from, I don't know, Wellesley or something go off to spend a week with the graduating class from, you know, someplace in Texas or someplace. This idea was the idea of David McCulloch the third, I think. It's the grandson of the famous late lamented David McCulloch that we all know. And the research on it is quite astonishing. If you give kids a chance to walk in the shoes of people like them, but in a very different part of the country with different political and social and economic backgrounds and so on, that transforms them, it seems, more or less permanently. Permanently, we don't know really permanently, but certainly over the next 3 or 4 years, 1 week does that. It shows you how powerful this idea of bridging social capital. And why do I emphasize this program is because, for the same reason you did national service, people want to do this. You don't have to force them to do this. They think it's fun, and it's only a week, and yet it has really powerful long-term consequences. Bottom line, putting yourselves next to and engaging with people unlike you, even politically, can have a powerful effect.
So you were famous about this idea of joining things. So for people that are sitting around not joining, what's your prescription? Join or die, as the
Right.
film is called. What should we join?
Well, we should join everything that we can that brings us face to face with other people, especially if it brings us face to face with other people who are unlike us. It doesn't mean we have to be the good government meet your enemy list.
Yeah.
It could be a gardening group, the reason bowling was such a good example is more. By the way, do you know more Americans bowl today than vote? They don't bowl.
Really?
Yeah, it's a
Oh,
big thing.
God.
And it's the most diverse sport in America, participant sport in America. Large numbers of black people and white people and rich people and poor people and PhDs and high school dropouts all bowl. So it's a good example of diversion people. And you know how to bowl. There's in a bowling alley. There's benches at the back.
Yeah.
And that's 5 people on a team, 10 people. 2 people are bowling at any one time, and what are the other 8 people doing? Well, they're talking.
Chatting.
Yeah, they're chatting. But
Yeah, maybe I should join a bowling league.
Occasionally, they're saying, "Well, what do you think about the schools?" Or they're talking. There's a little bit of civic business going on, and so all I'm saying is, yes, join something, but join something that's not about politics. Join something that's fun, but that will expose you to people who are a little bit different from you.
But let me tell you, the one thing, I don't mean to be a critic of yours, Bob Putnam.
BPR
I'm a
Bowling
big
League?
fan, but I'm going to be a critic just for a second. The fact that you have not written, I'm from Philadelphia and then New York before I moved here. The fact that you have not written, considering you are the author of Bowling Alone, the seminal work, about the abomination of bowling in New England with little tiny ball. When most of us have grown up with big balls, Bob.
Candle pins.
Don't get me started. I've got someplace here. I'll see if I can find it. Wait just 1 second, Jim.
Yeah, don't go anywhere. Go. No, you can go.
He's getting a candle pin. Candle pin.
I have a visual. Wait a minute. Hold on.
Yes, you have a minute. What is it?
There's a picture of a bowling team.
Yeah, we see it.
You see it?
Yeah.
You see it, yeah.
I'll describe it for you. It's 5 kids in a 5th grade bowling team there are, I really want to show you this. I can. There are two, this is the 1950s, small town America.
Yeah.
Two black kids, 3 white kids, tall, skinny one in the middle, that's me.
Yeah.
And the balls we're bowling with, Jim, are big
balls.
I knew why I loved you, Bob Putnam. I didn't even know, but now I know. Dead on. Hey, we really hope you'll come back soon. It's been too long. We're big fans of your work and of you as a person, so please rejoin us soon.
Thank you so much, and I learned so much talking to you and reading your work. Thank you so much, Bob
Be well,
Putnam,
Bob
for being
Putnam.
with us.
Bye.
We've been speaking with Harvard's Robert Putnam, author of the seminal Bowling Alone, as well as 14 other books, including Making Documentary Work, Our Kids, The American Dream in Crisis, and his newest one, The Upswing. Thank you so much for your time, Professor.
Be well, Bob.
Coming up right after the new news, we're going to be joined by Paul Dama, who spent months in ICE detention after being picked up on his way to church this summer. We're going to talk to him and his sister about how their restaurant is going now that he is out of ICE detention. I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browdy, listening to BPR on 89.7 GBH and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
This is listener-supported GBH. It's your community, your voice, made possible by your support. Help fund the news you depend on. Pitch in online at gbhnews.org.
Support for GBH comes from you.
And GM Roth Design Remodeling. Dreams delivered. With custom kitchens, bathrooms, and additions. Serving New England for over 39 years. Learn more at gmroth.com. And PNC Bank, who believes when you pay attention to the details, amazing things can happen. Like when you check the pockets of a jacket you haven't worn since last fall and find $20. PNC Bank. Brilliantly boring since 1865.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Jim Browdy, ahead on Hour 3 of BPR. A few months ago, Kristi Noem's ICE grabbed a manager with Roxbury's Suya joint. Paul Dama was here in the U.S. legally, having escaped Boko Haram terrorists in Nigeria. Now he's finally back free, granted asylum after a traumatic months-long legal battle. Paul joins us in Studio 3 alongside chef, owner, and his sister, Cecilia Lizotte.
I'm Marjorie Egan. Then we'll open the phone and text lines to talk all things games. It seems like in 2025, everybody's a gamer, be it hours on Xbox with friends or just a supposedly easy 30-second New York Times mini crossword every morning. What's your gaming obsession, and what has it done for your sanity or your social life? Weigh in next on the third hour of BPR 89.7 GBH.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Lakshmi Singh. The state of Illinois and the city of Chicago are suing the Trump administration over its effort to deploy National Guard troops in the state. NPR's Joe Hernandez reports the latest development caps a dizzying weekend of lawsuits and attempts by President Trump to send Guard members out to more American cities.
The state of Illinois and the city of Chicago are asking a judge to stop the Trump administration from federalizing the Illinois National Guard. They also want the administration barred from sending National Guard members from any other states, including Texas, to Illinois. The administration's decision to federalize the Illinois Guard over the weekend comes after weeks of threats by Trump to send troops into Chicago, which he's characterized as overrun with crime. Local and state leaders say there's no need for the National Guard in Chicago and that Trump is abusing his power. Meanwhile, a federal judge in Oregon blocked the administration from deploying National Guard troops from within the state or outside of it to Portland. Joe Hernandez, NPR News.
Today is day 6 of the government shutdown. Members of the Senate reconvened today to vote on temporarily funding the government. NPR's Deepa Shivaram reports Republicans and Democrats don't appear any closer to breaking their impasse.
Republicans are saying that right now the priority is to fund the government. And once that happens, then Congress can turn to these health care tax credits that are about to expire. wildfire. Though I will say, there's no guarantee that there's enough support to extend those credits. In the meantime, there's this messaging war going on. Republicans are saying that Democrats are holding up the vote on reopening the government. The White House even has a timer on their website for how long they say Democrats have shut down the government. Democrats on the other side say that Republicans are the ones holding it up because they refuse to negotiate.
NPR's Deepa Shivaram reporting. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention has taken the final step necessary to implement new guidelines for getting vaccinated against COVID-19 and chickenpox. More from NPR's Rob Stein.
The COVID vaccines are now subject to what's known as shared decision-making. That means for the first time this year, anyone who wants to get vaccinated has to first consult with a doctor, pharmacist, or some other healthcare professional about the risks and benefits of vaccination. This is an extra step compared with past recommendations. In addition, the CDC now recommends that toddlers receive chickenpox vaccination as a separate shot, rather than in combination with measles, mumps, and rubella vaccination. Rob Stein, NPR News.
French President Emmanuel Macron has lost a fourth prime minister in just over a year. After less than a month in office, Sébastien Lecornu has resigned. This comes just one day after naming his government. The Dow is down 110 points at 46,647. This is NPR News.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. The state's highest court says a class action lawsuit against Harvard Medical School over the 2023 morgue scandal can go forward. Several dozen families sued the school after the morgue's manager, Cedric Lodge, was criminally charged with stealing body parts from cadavers donated for medical research. A lower court initially found Harvard was not liable, but the state's Supreme Judicial Court says the plaintiffs have established enough facts to reasonably argue the school failed to provide proper oversight. Earlier this year, Lodge pleaded guilty to federal charges of transporting human remains across state lines. Harvard says it has since enacted numerous reforms to its cadaver donation program. 4 organizations convened at the Cambridge Innovation Center in the Foundry this past weekend to host the Abolition and Alternatives Conference on Housing and Justice, Police Dependency, and Nonviolent Alternatives. The Crimson reports that the 3-day event was organized by several organizations, including the Cambridge Housing Justice Coalition, the Massachusetts Community Care Network, and the Black Response. Some of the issues discussed were anti-racism, police surveillance, and the penal system. In sports, Monday Night Football, the Chiefs at the Jaguars, baseball playoffs, the LA Dodgers at Philadelphia, the Cubs at the Brewers, and just a quick note to let our listeners know that longtime GBH host of A Celtic Sojourn, Brian O'Donovan, left us 2 years ago today. We still feel his presence in the building. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Fisher Investments. Fisher is committed to helping clients stay on track to reach their financial goals and enjoy a comfortable retirement. FisherInvestments.com. Investing in securities involves the risk of loss.
Welcome to hour number 3 of Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan. Streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. We are going to be back at the Boston Public Library tomorrow. I'll be there as usual, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday of this week. Hello again, Jim.
Hello again, Marjorie. Paul Dama survived Boko Haram's violent extremism in Nigeria. Now works as the manager of his family's Nigerian restaurant Suya joint in Nubian Square, run by his sister, Cecilia Lizotte, who joined us a couple of months ago. In June, while on his way to church, Paul was arrested by ICE, even though he was here legally and in the process of seeking asylum. We spoke with Cecilia, as I said, while her brother was in ICE custody.
On a daily basis, when we post asking for request help, that's what I'm seeing where, yes, they said that they're going after criminals. They're going after people that have more offense than what it is that Paul has. But that's not what we're seeing. We're seeing others, even just speaking with Paul, where he is, there are a few people, I was just at work and they picked me up. And their record is clean. There's nothing.
So that was months ago. 2 weeks ago, ICE released Paul, and the federal government finally granted him asylum status. Homeland Security has till October 23rd to appeal. We're joined now in studio by Paul Dama, and his sister, the chef and owner of Suya Joint, Cecilia Lizotte, is on Zoom. Cecilia, it's good to see you again. And Paul, we're really thrilled to meet you. We're so glad you're here.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for coming in, Paul. So tell us why you came to the United States. What happened in Nigeria that made you want to get out of there?
A little closer to the mic, too, just a couple of inches. Yeah, great.
Okay. Yeah, I used to work as a journalist back in Nigeria, and I reported a lot about Boko Haram on the news station where I worked, the NTA, Nigerian Television Authority. So in October of 2019, while traveling with two of my friends, we got ambushed and we got kidnapped. They singled me out particularly to tell me they had been watching me and my reports on the news and how I've been using the media to expose them. They threatened me to leave my job and also leave the country. They forced my family to pay a ransom to secure my release. But just before they released me, they warned me again and told me if I'd continued working as a journalist, they were going to hunt me and they'll find me. And this time around, I wouldn't be lucky to get out alive. So due to that, I had to flee the country to come to the United States to seek asylum. And I've been here since 2019.
And Boko Haram, people remember, would go into those schools and take those young girls and young women out of their schools and keep them for months and months and months, and did a lot of horrible things.
Absolutely. As we speak now, there's still some of them in captivity. We don't know where they are. Quite a few of them were able to escape. Some of them were released by Boko Haram themselves. But quite a number of them are still in captivity with the Boko Haram, who has either turned them into their wives or using them as their slaves over there, wherever they are in captivity.
Cecilia, so your brother came here, you started working with him, and it seems from what you told us, he developed some pretty significant relationships with customers, members of the community, and that sort of thing. My recollection is correct, yes? Oops, you're muted. Still muted. Unmuted.
All right, can you hear me now?
Perfectly,
Yes.
thank you.
Okay, so he has been here working with me and developed relationship with customers, Nigerians, non-Nigerians alike. So when you come in there, you feel welcome, and so he does help me a lot at the restaurant. Correct.
Is he a good worker, this brother of yours, by the way? Is he a good worker or not?
Yes, he is a good worker, and that's why I put all my my heart and my soul. I went extra to make sure that he does get out of all the suffering that he is. He is a very, very good worker, apart from being my brother, yes.
Okay.
And you've got a very, very good restaurant. I mean, James Beard nominations. And it sounds, I said to Jim, we got to get over there.
Well, they're in two places now, too. You're in Providence,
Nubian
too.
Square in Providence.
So it's you apply for asylum, Paul, when you get here, and then what happens? I think it was it Father's Day that you were grabbed?
Yeah.
Tell us what happened on that day in June.
So on Father's Day in June 15th, I was on my way to church when suddenly, as soon as I got into my car and turned it on, I noticed one of the SUVs drive by in front of me. And it looked like one of those I've been seeing on the news. It had dark tints. You couldn't see who was driving in the car. It drove by in front of me, and I'm like, well, even if it's ICE, I don't think it's me they're looking for, So he passed by, and then I was driving behind him, and all of a sudden he made a U-turn. He got into a street, made a U-turn, and came out again, passed by me, and then made another U-turn, and then I noticed he was driving, following behind me. Turned on their lights, the red and blue lights started flashing, and then out of nowhere I saw 4 other SUVs coming behind me. So I pulled over, and then they all came and barricaded me from the front, the back, and the side. One of the officers came down, knocked on my window, and told me to wind down, and I did. He asked for my ID, and I gave him my driver's license. He told me to step out of the car, and I did. And as soon as I did, he told me they had a warrant for my arrest from ICE. Told me to turn around and put my hands behind me, and I did. And then they put me in handcuffs.
What were they wearing? Did they identify themselves? Were they masked? Were they?
No, they weren't masked, but the cars were unmarked. They had those.
Police vest?
Yeah, the vest with, I think, the bulletproof vest with the ice on it, HSI, and other inscriptions on them. Like I said, there were 5 of them, so I just cooperated with them, did all that they asked me to do. They took my phone and my wallet, my wristwatch, put me in one of their cars and drove me to a shopping mall, the Westgate Mall in Brockton. There was this part of the mall that was empty. The car park was empty. So they all came there, all 5 of them. So one of them asked me to come out of the car that I was in, and I did. And then at that point, they shackled me from my legs up onto my waist and attached the handcuffs to the chain on my waist, And they put me back in the car and drove me to the Burlington Processing Center.
You described in the last 5 minutes being grabbed, kidnapped, for lack of a better expression, by Boko Haram in Nigeria, and then this. Were you making those connections?
Absolutely, it kind of felt like the same thing. I was terrified, because seeing all 5 people armed and hefty-looking men, all bigger than me in size. I kind of just felt like the same thing was playing in my head. What happened to me back in Nigeria? I was terrified at that moment. I couldn't even ask them any questions because I was really terrified.
Cecilia, I believe you also told us that when this happened to your brother, that same clientele that I was asking you about a couple of minutes ago really rallied around his cause with money and other things. Explain what you were able to do in Paul's name in support of Paul.
So basically, after he called me to say this is it, I initially thought, okay, maybe a few days he'll be released, a week, but then days, weeks got into months. And at that point, I'm like, all right, I can't do this by myself because this is now, I'm feeling defeated. So I had to use my platform, Suya joined, to say, if there's anything, because people have reached out, how can they help? So I just got on there and I was just honest, came out in tears to explain my situation. This is what's going on. This is my brother and what has happened to him. And everybody came in masses. So they encouraged us to also start a GoFundMe. We started the GoFundMe just to help with his legal fees. And then, but we've gotten so much support that there are people that sent us emails. They can come and help us to make sure that we don't close the establishment until Paul is back. So all supports came in from all over the place. People that don't know Paul, people that have purchased food or just like send checks in the mail just to make sure that he's able to get help while he's over there. And then also not to utilize the resources from the restaurant, but just to just assist him to make sure that he comes back safely.
Cecilia, didn't you tell us that you were because Paul was not there to assist in the work that you were doing, there was a time when you were actually thinking of closing down the whole business, right?
Correct. Yeah, that's right. Because just the burden that has been added to my day-to-day activity, it was massive. In the sense of where all the attorneys were looking for information, and I'm like, well, but there's just so much I can do. And then my establishment as well. So the staff looking for me to be there, which I wasn't able to. So I did. I thought about closing severally. I spoke to my staff, where some of them did express the fact that, okay, either I'm a single mother, I depend on this income to do their own day-to-day activities. So I had to just pause and realize, but yes, Paul also as a general manager, he does help me with like shopping, whatever it is that we need him. Like even when he comes into the establishment, computer is broken, he's right there to help us, plumbing, anything like that. So, and then just making making sure that we're safe and that the customers are being taken care of, and de-escalating situations as well.
We're talking to Paul Dama, who was grabbed by ICE on Father's Day, was released 2 weeks ago when he was granted asylum, and his sister, who was the owner, chef, etc., of Suya Joint, the celebrated Suya Joint in Nubian Square, Cecilia Lizotte.
Paul, what was it like in the Burlington detention facility?
So as soon as we got there, they took off my shoes, took my shoelaces and everything I had on me. Told me, so I asked if I could make a call just to let somebody like from my family and also call my lawyer to let them know what was happening. It was a Sunday. Of course, I tried to reach my lawyer, but I couldn't get through because it was a weekend. So I reached out to Cecilia, told her what had happened. But before then, when I asked to make the call, the ICE officer who took me to the office told me they usually don't allow people make calls until when they're done with all the paperwork. But because I had cooperated with them during the arrest, he was going to let me make calls. So he gave me my phone. I took out some numbers, wrote them down on a piece of paper, and then gave it back to them. So I did make the call to Cecilia, and I told her what had happened. They had left my car parked on the side of the road. So I asked Cecilia if she could come grab the keys from the ICE office and go move it from there and probably take it back to my house. And the officer agreed to do that. He said he could give her all of my belongings if I wanted. So I told them yes to give everything to her. So
what was the detention like?
So at the Burlington Center, I think I spent about 2 to 3 hours before they moved me to Stratford County in New Hampshire.
Yeah, that's what I meant in New Hampshire. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but then before then, they had kept me in one of the detention rooms. It was extremely cold in there. I had to request for a blanket, but they said they didn't have any. So I think after about an hour or two, when they had finished my paperwork, they took me, one other lady, and another man, who told me he was going to be dropped at the border crossing to Canada because he's just returning back to Canada. He told them he just wanted to go back to his country. And I think he said he was from Canada. But myself and the lady got dropped off at Stratford County. And I've been there since June 15th until...
What was that like?
So yeah, there at the Stratford County, at first it was cold as well, really, really cold. I had to request for an extra blanket, and the booking officer was kind enough to give me an extra blanket that I was using until, I guess, when we complained a lot about the temperature in the unit, they kind of turned the AC down a little bit. So, and then, I mean, I would say compared to other places I've heard about, there at Stratford County, it was fair. The food was freshly cooked. It was warm. They brought the food warm to us. We had tablets that they gave us. We could use the tablets to call our family members and our attorneys. So we had access to family members, and I mean, at some point, I could even make international calls to Nigeria if I wanted.
How worried were you prior to asylum having been granted a couple of weeks ago, Paul Dama? How worried were you about possible deportation?
I mean, at some point, I'd lost hope. I remember telling Cecilia, like, listen, I don't think I'm going to step foot on American soil anymore because I was just seeing people being moved out. They would come like in the middle of the night and just call out names of like people 5 to 6 or 7
for deportation, or
I mean either deportation or they were moving them to a different facility. Yeah. So it was like every day I was just living in fear, not knowing if I was going to be next. So
what were you feeling, Cecilia, while your brother, prior to the granting of asylum, were you as worried as he was that he had set his foot on American soil for the last time?
Yes. So there was lots and lots of anxiety because you didn't know. There was such an uncertainty of what's going to happen, like the outcome of it, right? And then also the judge that was on Paul's case, she's very stern. So we're reading all these reviews and we're like, oh my God, what's going to happen? So we didn't know. So it's just all the way until September 23rd, it was just like fear. And I think as soon as we got into September, the anxiety actually like went up. Like, so this is the month and this is when we're going to know his fate. So
what was the turning point?
The turning point was, I think, my lawyer, she did a very, very great job with my case. She took a deep dive into it. When I told her my story, she told me to just have hope. Don't give up. Let's fight it to the end. And she did a very great job working with me. She was patient. She listened to me carefully, and we were able to write my story together. She was calling me constantly. There was an attorney line where we could speak on the phone with her, so she would constantly call me and ask me questions. And thankfully, with the kind of support that I got, especially from my family, from Cecilia, where she was able to get the evidence that they needed back from Nigeria,
about the risk for return.
Right, the letters and everything from family members who knew what had happened to me, my other two friends who were with me on the day of the kidnap, and all of that. So she did a great job. And then, even as at the time I was going for the hearing, I was really not sure what was going to happen. Like Cecilia said, all the reviews that we read about the judge, we heard she was a tough judge. She's very thorough. She doesn't approve over 80% of our cases get denied. So I walked in there with just the mindset that, well, whatever the outcome is, like my lawyer told me too that morning before the hearing, like it's not the end of life.
Well, could be the end of life.
It could be. Absolutely, because going back to Nigeria,
am I not right about this, Paul? That I think the Globe reported that, and I think we discussed this with your sister. I'm not sure. The Globe reported. You did have a record of a couple of driving under the influence things. And my understanding, to the credit of the judge, correct me if I'm wrong, she looked favorably on the fact that you're dealing with whatever those issues were. Is that a fair description of what happened there, or tell me?
Yes. And then I picked up those two DUIs because I had lost my mom in 2023, and I couldn't attend her funeral back in Nigeria. I hadn't seen her since the moment I came here. It was quite traumatic for me. It's a deep, deep, deep pain that I still feel.
And nothing else on your record at all?
Nothing else.
So when you hear the President of the United States say, we the most violent, what do you, every time you hear that, what do you say to yourself?
I just think that, well, I shouldn't have been in that category of people he's talking about, like the worst of the worst, right? Because even when I was there, I saw people who were picked up for just having a speeding ticket and who had even paid the fines.
I mean, when you were in Stratford?
Yeah, when I was in Stratford, yeah. There were people who only had speeding tickets, paid the fine and everything, but they still brought them there. The thing was that they were able to get a bond. At their bond hearings, they would pay like between $5,000 to $7,000, and they would go out on bond, and then they were able to fight their cases from outside. But the rest of us whose bond got denied were kept in there, and then we'll be there until our final hearing, just like me. So.
We're talking to Paul Dama, who survived Boko Haram's horrible kidnapping in Nigeria, and now works as the manager of his family's Nigerian restaurant, Suya, joint in Nubian Square. His sister, Cecilia Lizotte, also joins us. Cecilia.
And survived ICE, too, I think you should say.
Yes, and survived ICE. Cecilia, we've read and heard a lot about how chilling these attacks by ICE are on immigrant communities from all sorts of different countries. What's the feeling at your restaurant? It's a Nigerian restaurant.
So there's a feeling of fear. Like, I think a lot of people don't even want to go out. And as we speak right now, it's also affecting the establishment as well, right? Where they don't know where they'll be moving to see ICE vans. They haven't come to the restaurant to raid my establishment, but there is, like, for sure fear. And then we're trying to utilize on our day off, which is on Mondays, to try and see if we can get community together, just like to put some programs together, working with lawyers for civil rights to just educate, right? Like what you need to do, how you should, if you approach, what actions you should take, instead of just giving the right information so that everybody knows exactly what it is that they can do. So, for instance, Paul can also speak on his own experience, but there is fear intensified, yes.
You know, Paul, we mentioned, I don't know if we said this on air, we mentioned when you walked in that we had read also in the Globe story that the DHS, Homeland Security, has till October 23rd to appeal the asylum finding by the judge. What's your lawyer saying about the prospects there? What's her sense of things?
I mean, she's not saying anything at the moment. We're just keeping our fingers crossed and hoping that nothing happens. But yeah, I'm constantly going to check on my record to see if there's any appeal that has come up. But thankfully, like I said, none has come up. And
do you think differently about this country than you did when you first came here?
I mean, no. I would just say, to be honest, people should just cooperate with the law enforcement officers. Like I told you already, the ICE officer who picked me up just told me he let me make calls because I cooperated.
Yeah.
And people should just cooperate with them. When they struggle and when they resist arrest, it's when it escalates to the point where you see them tackle people to the ground and all of that. So,
well, there are many cases, in all fairness, where they haven't resisted, where they've tackled people too.
I guess what's so hard for me to reconcile is when these horrible atrocities were happening with Boko Haram. We heard about it all the time in the United States. They were looked at, persona non, horrible people. You managed to escape from them, and it would seem like people like you should be welcomed into this country, because it's obvious that they're the cops aren't going to protect you from them. I mean, they're running the show in many cases in Nigeria. So I guess that's what's shocking to me, that you would escape this, come to the United States, and then have this happen here, even though you did say that some of the ICE agents were kind and considerate to you. That's the part that seems hard for me.
I mean, I know, like a lot of the other inmates that were there with me at Strafford County also had pending asylum cases. So I guess, to my understanding, it seemed like the administration had cancelled all asylum applications.
Right.
Because we were made to apply again even while in jail. My lawyer had to send a fresh application. So they canceled every application, asylum application. And
hey, Cecilia, we only have a minute left. Can we end on an up? Well, the up note is Paul is free, which is an up note for all who care about him. Marjorie and I are going to bring our whole team to your restaurant.
That's right.
We're embarrassed we haven't been. Spend 45 seconds
we have a list of
telling us about how
buy.
great this place is.
Oh, Suya is amazing. So it's culturally inclined, and we invite anybody that hasn't had West African food to come in and dive in, and we're over there to educate you on what to get. So basically what Suya Joint is doing is just bringing West African flavors, and we hope to make it a household name. So please, holiday season is around the corner. Bring the team. We'll be more than happy to serve you, and hopefully you get to see Paul as well. Oh, he's in your studio, but you get to see us, and we will welcome you with open.
Okay, Cecilia,
open hands.
Jim wants the beef marinated in the soya spice, peanut powder, ginger can.
You don't have to
onion,
order in advance,
garlic,
Marjorie. It's
then
okay.
grilled with more onions. I just want to let you know that's what he says.
Hey, Paul, in all seriousness, we've thought a lot about you since we met your sister, and we're really glad you were free, and we hope that continues past October 23rd.
Thank you so much, and I appreciate everybody who supported. I appreciate the media organizations for using their outlets to tell my story, which has brought me to where I am right now. I
Cecilia,
appreciate it. Thank you.
Wonderful. We'll see you both at the restaurant soon, we promise.
Awesome. Yeah, just let me know when you're coming. I'll
It's
make
a
sure
deal.
I'm there.
Absolutely.
Great to see you both.
Cecilia,
Be well.
thank you very much, and congratulations on your huge success at your restaurant. And Paul, we are keeping our fingers crossed for you. Hope everything works out. Thank you for coming in.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Coming up, I'm not sure what's coming up. We are ending this segment right now, though, and we have a surprise. Phones aren't working, so we're going to play a terrific pre-tape.
That's right. We're going to play a terrific pre-tape. That's
Stick
right.
around.
Bye-bye.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And Moderna. mNEXSpike, COVID-19 vaccine mRNA by Moderna, is available. Pharmacists can help with any questions about neck spike. And the Umbrella Arts Center, presenting the electric musical Tick, Tick, Boom by Jonathan Larson. Before there was rent, there was a composer with a dream. Playing October 10th through November 23rd. Details at theumbrellarts.org. And the Trustees, presenting Halloween on the Hill, a celebration of autumn at the Trustees Long Hill in Beverly, running Wednesday through Saturday nights until October 30th. Advance tickets required. Learn more at thetrustees.org/Halloween. And MIT Sloan Executive Education, offering 2 to 3 day courses and executive certificates for professionals seeking cutting-edge business insights on innovation, cybersecurity, AI, and more. Info at executive.mit.edu.
Welcome back to BPR. Marjorie Egan and Jim Browdy, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. We're back at the library tomorrow, Wednesday, and Friday. We are sorry to report the issue we were having with the phone lines this morning has yet to be fixed. Some issue with the internet, so, well, whatever it is. Rather than spend the final 30 minutes of the show struggling to hear callers and struggling to troubleshoot, we're playing it safe and re-airing an Am I the A-hole, which, of course, is Marjorie's favorite segment of the whole show. Your mic's not on, but she said absolutely. We hope to be back at full capacity tomorrow, but in the meantime, we hope you enjoy the segment about a host who refuses her guests coffee. And of course, because this is a re-air, sadly, please don't call in. It's time once again to take a pause from our national constitutional crisis and instead focus on a more pressing question: who is the a-hole? Today's suspects are a husband and wife duo who do not drink coffee. That's a problem to begin with. For that reason, they don't keep a coffee maker in their house or any coffee making supplies. No Mocha Express, no pour over, no Mr. Coffee, nothing even instant. Well, whenever friends are in town and staying with them, it always comes up that someone visiting wants coffee in the morning. They always inform their guests that there's a cafe a mere 2 minutes from their home, but no, they do not have any coffee in the house. And while they can certainly afford a machine, they're low on kitchen space, they say anyway, and don't see the need on keeping one around, only to use it once or twice a year when guests come over. But now our hosts are concerned it's affecting their relationships with their visiting friends, who seem a little sour, as I would be, on the fact that there isn't any coffee available for them when they stay over and wake up in the morning. So the question is quite simple. Who is the a-hole? Is it the coffeeless hosts or the caffeine-dependent guests, friends, who can't make it one morning without their fix? You may start. Who, Marjorie, is the a-hole?
Well, you could say that the hosts were the a-holes for not accommodating their guests. It's kind of rude because they can.
Go ahead.
No, they can get a very small French press. You can get them for $10.
Sure, okay.
And they could just have them there. They would have storage for that. They could put it away like a big glass. But on the other hand, I'm a coffee addict. I love a cup of coffee. And if I went to somebody's house once and they didn't have any coffee, before I went back, I would make sure I took care of my coffee problem. I'd either stop at Starbucks and get a huge coffee that I heat up in the morning, or I bring my own French press.
Or not go.
Well, it seems a little dramatic.
I don't think it's
like
dramatic.
them. They say I'm not coming if you don't have any coffee.
You think the a-hole, I'm surprised you said this. You think the a-holes are the people who wanted the coffee and should have known by the second time you should have brought your own or whatever. Is that what you're saying?
When you go there once, they have no coffee. They're not going to get you any coffee. You have to go out and get coffee down the street. The second time I would go, I either asked them if they had any coffee. If they didn't, I'd bring my own because so they're kind of not a-holes exactly, but they're kind of foolish.
Don't back away from this. You said they were a-holes.
All right, I'll say they're a-holes. I'll stick with it. They're a-holes, Jim.
I would like to say the people who will not even buy a cheap little coffee maker are huge a-holes. Let me be clear about that. If you didn't know, first of all, if you don't have something as basic as coffee, you know what you do when you invite people over? Say, by the way, are you coffee? No, are you coffee drinkers?
Yeah.
If you are, I'll take care of that. And once you've had them over and you know how coffee dependent they are, and you choose not to have coffee of any kind or a maker in your house the second time, a pox on you. Many pox on you. They, don't change your opinion. The non-coffee providing couple are huge a-holes.
Okay, they're huge, huge a-holes.
I said that, yes.
Okay, I'm probably going to lose on this one.
You're probably going to switch your position in a minute.
But it's also, if there's something you are really attached to, like I used to be really attached to orange juice in the morning.
Yeah, whatever happened? You used to drink orange juice when I met you all the time. What happened?
I know. Well, I do sometimes, but I've switched now to pineapples. I eat a lot of pineapples.
Nice. That's great.
You know how exquisite my pineapples
they're
are.
You get them perfectly ripe.
I
and
get them
juicy,
perfectly ripe. That's one of my areas of expertise.
That's good.
Tuna fish and cutting pineapples.
I haven't had any tuna fish from you in about 8 months.
Okay, well, I'll see what I can do. Maybe I have some in the refrigerator.
For that. Good.
Anyway, that I would make sure that there was going to be orange juice any place I went. So I
you're
wouldn't
switching
be stuck
your
without
position already.
No, I'm not.
Oh, you mean you bring it yourself?
Yes. I would put the onus on myself.
Wait a second. You got to be kidding. Something is, if you want a pineapple, you should bring it with you. I don't think
not the pineapple.
Wait a second. I don't think there should be expectations that wherever you go, someone's got a pineapple for you.
Not pineapple. Orange juice. Orange juice.
Or an upside down pineapple. That's another whole story.
No, we don't need. No, that's a different story.
Okay, but having said that, what's more basic than coffee, as in terms of a warm greeting kind of thing for guests? Is there anything? The answer would be no.
Okay.
And so the answer is you provide it, you buy, and you had a better argument than I did, even though you don't agree with me. A French press doesn't take up any room. You can buy the one for $8.99, a cheap one.
I have a
and
small
when you're
one.
done, you put it
They're
in
great.
the damn closet.
Makes one little cup of coffee.
Okay, 877-301-8970.
Oh, listen to this.
Who's the
Carrie
a-hole?
Braintree brings her own fresh press wherever she goes.
Oh.
You're a house guest. Don't look a gift horse in the mouth.
Beautifully put. Ellen in Attleboro, you were first on Boston Public Radio. Who's the a-hole, Ellen?
I have to agree with Jim this time.
Thank you.
I think that, it's not just once or twice a year when people visit, but if you have a dinner party, you might want to offer a cup of coffee afterwards.
Exactly.
You can also make other things with it, like hot chocolate and tea. You don't have to necessarily make coffee. But I was in a situation once where I had guests who were staying with us because their house got flooded. And one morning, the mother came over to me and presented me with a list. And she said, "Can you go get this at Dunkin' Donuts for us?" So I think that was pushing it a little bit. I'm happy to provide a little coffee maker, but I'm not going to treat you to Dunkin' Donuts.
How extensive was the list, Ellen? Did she have the coffee plus the croissant plus the butter crunch donuts?
There were 4 items on the list, and then some. She said, "You can just get a half a dozen of donuts." I said, "Oh, can I?"
Hey, Ellen, that was a good one to start us off. Thank you for your call. We
Staying
appreciate
at
it.
your house. Well, we should say, in fairness, the a-holes, as you call them, Jim, they did offer to take her down to the local coffee shop.
You got to be kidding.
Yeah.
No, excuse me. I know that's true. When you wake up in the morning, do you say to yourself, I think I want to get dressed
and go to the local coffee shop?
No,
you don't.
You want your coffee ready. This is one of the basic courtesies.
The host should have gone to the local coffee shop and brought the coffee
bought
back.
it. Exactly.
That's right.
That's why they're the a-holes.
That's right. They're the a-holes. Okay, let's go to Laura in Connecticut. What do you think, Laura?
Hello, Laura.
Hi. I love you guys. Moved from Mass to Connecticut.
Oh.
I used to drink coffee all the time, but when I met my now wife, I had to give it up because her mom and dad smoked and drank, and she just couldn't stand the smell of coffee anymore. So I think the a-hole are the guests, because some people just can't stand the smell when it's brewed in the house. If I want coffee, I go out and get it now and then, but we do not have it in the house.
Wait a second, Laura, let me be clear. I think the 2 greatest smells in the food world are baking bread and coffee.
Yeah.
So is your wife's problem because she associates the smell with other things she doesn't like, or is it the coffee smell itself?
Well, it's the coffee smell, but it's because her parents smoking with the cigarettes.
Okay.
She can't stand cigarette and coffee together.
I got it. No,
I
okay.
love the smell, too. I get it.
Oh.
I get your point.
But can I tell you a good story that I've told before, and I assume a lot of people know? Starbucks stopped, 10 years ago, stopped grinding the beans in the store, and their business went way down. And they were trying to figure out why the business went down. And the reason it went down is because people not only liked drinking the coffee, they liked entering the room, the business, the shop, and smell the coffee being ground right away, which is one of the great smells ever. Laura, thanks for joining us. We hope you move back to Massachusetts someday.
Alan
Thanks
from
for calling.
Dighton says the freeloading, visiting friends are the a-holes. And the next texter says the addict should take care of their addiction. Coffee is an addiction. No sympathy, says Pat from Sharon.
Well, can I tell you why that is wrong and you were wrong?
Why
Let me
is
give
that
you another
wrong?
example, Margaret.
Okay.
Do you know some people sleep on the floor? Elon Musk sleeps
Sleep
on the floor. Some people sleep on the floor.
I don't think he's a good model.
If the hosts sleep on the floor, should they not have beds for the people who come? I mean, seriously, there's certain basic beds and coffee and maybe a bathroom are the three things I think you have an obligation
We're back
to
to
provide.
a recurring theme here. Jim is the big a-hole.
Oh, here we go.
Why should I spend $14 on a bag of coffee that I didn't have to give to my guest, that I did have to give to my guest to take home? Nobody said you had to give it to them to take home. You could have kept it yourself.
Well, what are you going
right?
to do with it if you don't drink coffee? I guess.
But nonetheless, I had to read that one because they said you were the
Jim's
big
the
a-hole.
a-hole. Yeah, well, that's really makes
Okay.
Marjorie happy. Let's go to.
Guests should be accommodated. Starbucks makes fabulous instant coffee. Have you had instant coffee from Starbucks?
It's better than the average instant coffee. Is not great.
Yeah.
Can I say something else? When you invite people to your house,
You usually ask them what they like.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
You're their host.
you like them what they like.
So you
exactly.
switch your position again, and you have the basics. And if coffee is a basic, it isn't like they say I like a Picasso on the wall. They say I like a cup of coffee when I wake up in the morning.
Yeah, they're not saying
Get
they
'em
want
coffee.
pineapples or anything that's a little bit more involved. They just want a cup of coffee.
A lot of people
now
are
here's
texting
another one.
asking what's the significance of the upside down pineapple. Do you want to share that with people?
No, why don't you share it with people, Jim?
Well, Chris from Muther told us about it. He went on a cruise on something, and I don't think he knew before. If you have a symbol of an upside down pineapple on the door of your room, am I right about this?
You're a swinger.
You're a swinger, yes.
That's
You're
right.
inviting other swingers to swing with you, I guess.
And that's why people were appalled when they saw you walking around Market Basket with an upside down pineapple
that's funny.
in your container
Okay,
after we
fine.
talked about
Thank
that. Okay, here's a question.
What is it?
This is kind of putting us in another plane here. What about tea drinkers? I go to people's homes that don't have tea. Do you think people who don't keep tea in their home, like me, are jerks?
I can answer that. No, I do not.
Okay.
Tea is not, I mean, if you request tea, then tea should be provided. If you don't request it, I think most people agree, tea is not as much of a staple and an expectation as coffee. Would you agree with that or not?
Yes, but I try to remember it. I have my closest cousin. She likes tea. I try to remember to get
because
tea
you
when
know
she
she
comes
likes
down.
tea.
That's right.
Let's go to Lisa in Rhode Island. You're next on Boston Public Radio. Thank you for calling, Lisa. Hi.
Hi, Jim and Marjorie. I just wanted to let you know I've been a tea drinker my whole life. I just turned 65.
Happy birthday.
And thank you. And I always had the best coffee I could find and made it in the best way for anyone who lived in my house or came into my house and wanted coffee. But, now that Marjorie mentioned it, I don't see when I go and have tea at other people's houses, they usually have crappy tea. But and it's not like the tea I swooned over in Scotland. But strangely enough, in this past 6 months, I've come to like coffee. It used to make me stick to the ceiling, and it doesn't anymore. But
That's
what
beautiful.
do you know? So I can drink anything now, but I always want to take care of my guests.
That's it. That is the central
Taking
theme
care of
here,
your guests.
Lisa. It's not an extravagant demand. It's a basic demand. Happy birthday, and thanks for calling, Lisa. We appreciate it. Yep.
Not everyone who's texting is showing that generosity of spirit.
What
Listen
are
to
they
this
saying?
one. If someone doesn't have coffee, they should bring their own. A host is certainly responsible to tell the guests that, oh, no, that's not it. I read the wrong one. Listen to this.
Yeah.
I don't drink coffee. I hate the smell of it. I'm happy to share anything with guests, but not supply things I don't use. How about that one?
Well, then they're not willing to provide everything for guests. They're willing to provide what they want. This is an interesting question. I think one of our colleagues asked, if your guest is a cigarette smoker, should you give them a pack of like Marlboros or something when they get there?
Yeah, well, one of our staff members says she pre-rolls a joint every time she's got company coming over, so they'll be ready just in case. Yeah.
Okay, Bonnie, can I take a call or what are you doing?
Go ahead.
Fine, I will. Bonnie in Salem, welcome to the show. Hi, Bonnie. How you doing?
Hey, guys.
Hi.
Hello. Good afternoon. This is not my first call, but I love calling.
Well, good.
So
Thank you.
My question is,
okay,
it's not necessarily name calling, but my curiosity is when someone is having brunch, for 12 people at their home, or maybe 14, and they have a lovely spread, and the only thing they have is this teeny tiny minuscule Keurig, so that you can only have one cup of coffee, and it takes forever to come out. Then the next time around, you can't even get another cup of coffee for an hour. You could have already gone to Dunkin' Donuts and bought a box of Joe.
My kind of woman. Oh,
Yeah,
the
you
ferocity
gotta get a
of
big
that
coffee.
call was beautiful, Bonnie.
That's true. You need one of those great big coffee things if you're going to have 12 people over, don't you? Because people can go through a lot of coffee.
Yeah. How many people have, Bonnie, thanks for the call. How many times you had, you have 12 people over from time to time, don't you?
Well, I had a little COVID brunch after my daughter got married. We all, yeah.
At your house?
Well, we had to open all the windows and be out in the back porch.
What'd you make, prune chicken?
You knew
What'd
that.
you make, prune chicken?
No, like it from Flour Bakery. I got
you
it from
did?
Flour Bakery. It was a brunch. It was fantastic.
Oh, that's
But
really
you had to
good.
get one of those big coffee things, big boxes. They make you
I
like
know what a coffee
4
box
boxes of coffee. You can get it from
know what they are.
Dunkin' Donuts or Starbucks or Flour Bakery.
Have you
and
changed
they're
your
in there.
position on this? You think you have changed your position, right?
Yeah. Well,
the a-holes are the providers. You invite somebody over, you provide the basics, not the extraordinaries, but the basics.
Well, a lot of people are pointing out that if someone invites you to stay in their home for free, and you're a really coffee fanatic, and you know they don't drink coffee, you should bring your own damn coffee.
No.
So some people are on my side, Jim.
No, it's basic.
Not everybody, but some people.
Okay,
Let's
fine.
go to Caroline in the South End. What do you think, Caroline?
Hello, Caroline.
I think that Jim is acting like an entitled a-hole.
Thank you. Thank you. That made Marjorie happy. So go ahead, Caroline.
Oh, Marjorie, I am so on your side. You're acting like an entitled a-hole.
I heard that.
You can want what you want, but when you're a guest in somebody's house, that's what you are, a guest in somebody's house. I don't particularly like the smell of coffee. My husband drinks coffee, and he has one of those Nespresso machines, but I don't like the smell of coffee. I didn't like it when I was pregnant, when I had cancer. It's just terrible. And I live in the South End, and there's so many wonderful coffee shops around here.
Yeah.
I'm happy to take my guests to one of them. That's all I have to say.
That is a woman
And,
with a... you're not done. Go ahead, Caroline. You want to call me an a-hole again? Go ahead.
Jim, when I come to your house, are you going to have a mahogany box full of the different assorted teas that I like to have?
That actually won't be a problem because you're not coming to my house, Caroline, after calling me an a-hole.
That's right. I'm not going to your house.
Caroline, you were
That's
great.
why?
That was great. Thank you.
Why? Because you're...
Oh, I'm sorry. We didn't. Our apologies. We cut her off. By the way, can we play a good soundbite? We have a lot of coffee sound. This is my favorite. Sometimes not having coffee in the house isn't such a big deal. Here's 8 seconds of romantic tension from the 1996 Ewan. I hope I pronounced that right. Zoe said I'd say I pronounce it. McGregor comedy drama. You got to listen carefully because it's quick. Blast off. Here it is.
Come up for a coffee. I don't drink coffee. I haven't got any.
That's pretty great. That is a pretty great soundbite as far as I'm concerned.
I like that very
love
much.
That soundbite.
Oh, that worked out well. You can tell.
Okay.
So here's somebody that's being very polite, very polite.
Right.
This is endemic of everyone being a-holes to each other. The host should be more gracious to accommodate their guests, and the guests should be more gracious about being guests. When did it become okay for everyone to be jerks? When I have overnight guests, I reach out to ask specifically about breakfast preferences to make sure I accommodate my guests. And that's kind of true. If you have somebody overnight for your house, do they like cereal? Do they like eggs? Do they like bacon? Do they like pastries?
Well, can I follow up on that? I think it's really, really important to ask those kind of questions. For example, when I have friends coming in from out of town, you know what the first question I ask them, Marjorie, is?
What?
What hotel do you want to stay in? That's I always ask that as the first question.
Here's someone who's kind of like you, Jim.
What?
Anytime we have guests sleep over, when it's time for bed, I tell them, there's a big box store around the corner. Go get yourself a sleeping bag. That's a good one.
That is a pretty good one, actually.
Okay, let's go to Kristen in New Hampshire. Hi, Kristen.
How are you?
Hello there. I am horrified by all of this,
Beautiful.
and I totally support Jim.
Thank you.
I mean, really, where did this happen? I am so happy to provide anything for people that are staying at my house.
I'm with you.
It brings me joy.
Me too.
Coffee, whatever it is. Where did this become a political, insulting type of thing.
That
It's
is perfect.
horrible.
And by the way, you are right. It shouldn't just stop at coffee. If you have guests at your house, Kristen, you provide joy in their life. That's what you're saying.
Jim is
correct?
providing a lot of joy
Make
over there
their
in
house,
Cambridge.
Their room look nice. I have flowers, candies. You want them to be comfortable and say, wow, I had a great time. Not like,
Kristen, invite us over anytime you want. That's Kristen from New Hampshire.
I will.
Thank you. That is the classic excellent host, in my estimation. That's how you approach guests at your house.
Well, it is odd. It is odd, I must say, that if you had these people over and you knew they were upset about the coffee and you have them over again, you basically say, drop dead.
Yeah, we should be clear about this. This was the second time they visited.
Second time.
They made clear they were not happy. They were polite the first time about not having any coffee. The second time, you either don't invite them or you provide coffee. Yes or no?
Yeah, but I still would do what I said before.
No, you
If I were going to somebody's house that didn't drink coffee and didn't have any coffee making equipment, I would bring a French press or bring a huge container of coffee from
No,
somewhere
actually,
and
that's
heat it
not
up
true.
the next day.
You would intend to bring a French press. You would leave it in
And
your
then
house.
I would forget.
Can't
No, that's
find the
true.
coffee, and you have left your credit card under the rock.
That's right. Okay.
Let's go to Todd in Attleboro. Hello, Todd. We're talking about a-holes and coffee. Hi there.
Yeah, hey, I've got some very strong opinions about this. I
Excellent.
do like coffee. I like hosting, and I want to make sure that I've got reasonable accommodations for my guests. Coffee, tea, maybe a little bit of liquor. I don't cook every day, but for me, it's really important. And just because I lived overseas in a lot of different cultures, I've got a lot of different coffee-type machines, grinds, espresso. My husband's Egyptian. He will make Egyptian coffee when we have guests, or Middle Eastern coffee. So we've got a wide variety. And for me, like I said, hosting or inviting people over is an art, whether it's overnight or a dinner party. And I just feel like it's a good thing to do with people. And, I get it, they'll come back. I get invited over to their houses if it's local. I also entertain foreign guests, but I don't push coffee on anybody if they don't want it. I've got alternatives.
You know, that is a beautiful phone call and a beautiful spirit. Now, you say you provide it because you want them to come back. If you didn't want them to come back, would you not provide it, Todd?
No, I wouldn't not provide it.
Because you're a
I
good
would
person.
I wouldn't want to make anybody feel welcome unless they wore a MAGA hat.
You are...
My mom
Todd, thanks for the call. We appreciate
and
it.
are coffee drinkers, and we travel with our coffee maker. We get migraines if we don't have access to the magic elixir. She's currently on a plane for vacation with her little coffee container in tow. Coffee other places may not be strong enough for us. Wow. Yeah, they're really.
What was
into
the
their
wow
coffee.
part? What was the wow part?
That
of
they're
it?
that into coffee that they would actually travel on an airplane with a coffee container. Right.
How happy are you
A
with
lot of people have coffee bags. You ever tried that?
What is a coffee
Like tea
bag?
bags.
I've never even heard of that. Was that
Well,
I
apparently
assume
they're
it's-
out.
Was that instant coffee in a bag?
I guess so. Yeah.
What do you want to opine on instant coffee? Or you don't?
Definitely the host of the A-holes. That's silly.
good.
Did they let you use the bathroom, or do you have to go across the street to the service station?
That is. That is.
John
Why
in
didn't I think of
Fairhaven.
that? That is perfect, John. Thank you for that. We have time for one more quick one. Carol in the car. Hi.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Perfectly. Thanks.
All right, great. Not only, okay, I'm on your side with this one, Jim.
Thank you.
Definitely. I will tell you, first of all, I always have coffee in my house, so you're welcome. And if I go to a person's house, not only am I a guest overnight, I expect that coffee to be brought to me while I'm still in bed. Thank you very much.
I am keep going. That's beautiful. Go ahead.
Okay, there's more. So I worked on ships. I sang on ships
You
for a
do?
long time. Yep, I have.
That's great.
It was great, 26 trips. Anyway, the deal was I could always bring a friend with me. But the deal was with a friend, bring me friggin' coffee in the morning or you're off the ship. And
Love
that's
it.
how it worked. And I always get my coffee in the morning.
You know how to live, Carol. That was a perfect call to end this.
definitely do.
Thank you very, very much. By the way, for those who are, we're back live again. For those who are feeling, bad, we're back in Brighton. What is it, Thursday? If the phones aren't working, I want to compliment our staff for coming up with this.
Yep.
You just go outside your house and scream as loud as you can, and we'll hope that somewhere. Here's you kind of thing.
Well, they can put signs on the windows right outside
I
the
like
studio.
that.
How
You can
about
hold
that?
signs. Yeah.
Yes.
So, Jared, I think the topic that we did on Am I the A-hole that just replayed was if you don't have coffee and someone stays over your house, I think this was it. Do you provide it even though you don't drink it as a courtesy? Hospital, like when people stay over at your house, like nobody. But if people stay over at your house, and would you provide something that's important to them? You would, clearly, I think.
Of course, yeah. People do. By the way, people do stay over at my house.
They do?
Marjorie stays over like every other night.
I do.
Yeah.
And boy, is it lovely. It is lovely. And there is all sorts of wonderful kinds of coffee.
But you would, right?
The massage menu I leave at your...
Exactly.
Isn't that basic courtesy?
Of course you do that. Of course you have all sorts of things for people.
Okay, fine. So what are we talking about? Oh, what is your show about?
Well, here's another way for people to talk to you guys. They can project it onto the building. We're going to be talking about that today.
I love
So there's a new documentary all about the projections that we're seeing on as forms of protests that are happening outside the building.
London.
Like what?
Of course, with Epstein and Trump.
Westminster? Was that
it was
London?
at Windsor.
London.
Windsor.
Oh, was it Windsor?
Where's Windsor? Is it
Windsor
London?
Castle. In Windsor.
Oh,
it
okay.
is?
Windsor Castle.
That's why it's called Windsor.
I haven't been there.
I thought it was in Castle, actually. Sorry about that. Go ahead. Okay.
So we're going to be talking to Tom Clement about his documentary that looks at where does this reside in the realm of free speech. We'll talk to Jill Lepore about her new book, We the People.
I love her.
It's a great book
She
looking
is
at
fabulous.
how amendable is the Constitution. We seem to have forgotten that it actually is amendable, and we can pass amendments to change it. So that's the realm of the courts now. And then we will talk about Fritz Shoulder's Bicentennial Indian as we talk to the MFA in this Countdown to 2026 series we're doing about arts in their collection that reframe the American Revolution.
Excellent.
Excellent. Sounds good
That's a
to me.
good one.
Nice to see you.
Jared, thank you very much, and thank you for all your wonderful overnights. It's been lovely. Thank you very much.
Take pictures next time you
Okay,
go.
I will.
I appreciate your
I will.
Yelp reviews.
Okay.
See you.
Yeah. Keep up with us 24/7 via our podcast or check out our TikTok page. Thank you for tuning in today. Sorry for the little snafus. Tomorrow we're going to be back at the Boston Public Library with NBC Sports Boston's Trenni Casey, Frontline filmmaker Jessa Newman on their latest documentary, Born Poor, the Boston Foundation's Lee Pelton, and the ACLU of Massachusetts' Carol Rose. We want to thank our very hard-working crew, Zoe Matthews, Aidan Conley, Nicole Garcia, Hannah Loss. Additional support from Mira Donaldson. Brad Lewis ran our YouTube stream today. Our engineer is John the Claw Parker. Our executive producer is Jane Bologna. The Culture Show is going to be a good one today with Jared Bowen. Starts right after we.
Can I say, by the way, both
whatever.
the library and the phone here, this is not our coworkers who are fabulous and working like
No,
dogs.
it's technical
the
problems.
systems are just
It's
old
technical
and
problems.
need fixing, but they work like dogs. And
Yeah,
we
Jim's
thank them.
going to get to work right after the show's over.
I am.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm Jim Browder.
I'm Marjorie Egan. Thank you for
Yeah,
tuning in. Hope you
bye.
can tune in tomorrow, and hope you can stop by the Boston Public Library. Have a great day.
What's trending? What's interesting? What's going on around town? We're talking all things arts and culture on The Culture Show, next on GBH 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you.
And the Umbrella Arts Center, presenting the electric musical Tick, Tick, Boom by Jonathan Larson. Before there was rent, there was a composer with a dream. Playing October 10th through November 23rd. Details at theumbrellaarts.org. The next independent lens focuses on the groundbreaking discovery that rewrote the rules of molecular biology. Catch Cracking the Code, Phil Sharp and the Biotech Revolution, tonight at 10 on